Phoenix Knights. Chapter 1045. Only a Game. Chapter 1045. Only a Game. Proofreader Papatonks. No, any rotten plan coming from that demon would bring about only suffering and pain. He can't be left in charge of the war. There'll be no one left alive to pick up the pieces. Murong Shui was outraged and stormed into main hall, fanatic in her conviction. The others were still trying to come to terms with what they saw to stop her for the first time. Ouyang Changqing's ego was so crippled, he could not attend to the girl of his dreams. He sighed to Wu Qingqiu. I've never seen those old guys bow to anyone in my life. That best disciple of yours is a freak of nature. Since you're around him all the time, isn't his style influencing your cultivation and mind? We're still safe, since he didn't get to reach Double Dragon Manor when he presumably died. Our minds had yet to be corrupted, ha ha ha. Wu Qingqiu's group flinched and let out a dry laugh. Ouyang Changqing nodded. What a stroke of luck, for if it were me, just being constantly compared with such a freak would give me a stroke from all the anger. Just how did he get to lead the Four Lands? Ouyang Changqing sat down with a dull gaze. Murong Shui just drove right into the main hall. She saw Ling Yutian and other Genesis stage experts pushing their Yuan-Chi in Zhuofan's acupoint, and soon his cultivation was released. Zhuofan stretched a bit and nodded with a grin. Murong Shui glared at him, but bowed before Ling Yutian with a request. Sect Leader Ling, you said you were only going to hear his plan? Against my principles, I choose to respect that decision. But his mind is warped, so how can you let him take control of the Four Lands armies? There are too many lives at stake. The slightest mistake will lead to a genocide. Miss Murong, that's exactly why we have all come to this decision to let Serjua be in charge. Only he can fight a genius like Beili Jingwei. Miss Murong, would it be possible to address your bias to Serjua? Ling Yutian regarded her with a cold eye. Fed up with this zealous girl, Murong Lai no longer took her side after Zhuofan made him a believer out of his skills. Swear, this is for everyone's good, so don't let emotions or your moral obligation cloud your judgment. None of us could suffer the consequence of losing this war. Then I request for Zhuofan to be under constant supervision, to stop him from abusing his authority. Every order needs unanimous approval before it is to be carried out. It's the least measure of safety we can have to prevent his poison from seeping into the masses. Murong Shui stared burning daggers of hatred at Zhuofan. With not even her own brother taking her side, she knew Zhuofan had them wrapped around his finger, and she could do nothing to change that. She could only compromise, no longer demanding his swift execution, and instead try to curb his authority. The others looked hesitantly towards Zhuofan. It would be a good idea to have a safety net in this chaos, stopping everything from devolving any mistake into a catastrophe, so they turned to him to see his take on it. Zhuofan spoke uncaring. Have you all forgotten my first condition back in the dungeon? Complete control. And now you want to restrict me? Fine, I'll just quit. Wait, Serjua, that's not it at all. Just. Ling Yutian was panicking, glancing at Murong Shui. It's only Miss Murong's idea for an extra precaution. In the case when Sir overlooks something, we can easily address the issue before it devolves. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow in mockery. Overlook? Ha ha ha, true, no one is perfect and infallible. I will be sure to make mistakes. Then does Sir. Not happening. Just as Ling Yutian saw hope, Zhuofan snuffed it out, flying into a rage. Sect Leader Ling and Miss Murong, what do you take war for? The two had no reply ready. They were mere cultivators and knew little about war and all its aspects. Isn't it mere fighting the other over resources and land? What else can it be? Zhuofan's eyes shone coldly. War is a game. A game? Murong Shui flared. You're treating the horror and suffering the people endure on the battlefield as a game? This is absurd. How do you intend to win this war if you can't even take it seriously? Sect Leader Ling, I still believe he isn't right for. Miss Murong, you're the one underestimating war. Zhuofan shouted over her. War is only a game. All the people, assets and locations are the pawns of the player. To win the war, one must use the least of his pawns to grasp most pawns of the enemy. Life and people have no place in it. A commander having a heavy conscience over these trifles can never win. And when he loses, the casualties mount in piles. Murong Shua's lips shook, unable to retort. Zhuo Fan's gaze was ice, staring her down. What war out there doesn't have casualties, using your own people's lives in exchange of the enemy's? This is war in its purest form, a concept no one can deny. Miss Murong goes on and on about suffering and pain, then do you believe with that you can win on kindness alone? Taking command yourself will be the worst choice, making you an aide is handicapping the commander. For victory, yes, I may trade a large number of lives, but your kindness will stop my orders and result in a larger bloodshed. You want to save the people, or win the war? Which is it? I think that winning the war means saving the people, ha ha ha. Murong Shua's eyes flashed with determination, but it was Ling Yutian who stepped in to speak what everyone else believed, but all here knew winning the war and saving the people hardly were connected. Central Area's army was marching on northern lands, but the people might survive. All this talk was to give oneself a just cause. If nothing else, they just wanted to win the war and not save the people. Murong Shua's stance was thus in conflict with everyone else's from the start. As we gave our word to let Serge decide everything and he doesn't agree, we will have to veto your request. Wait. Zhuo Fan held up his hand, looking from Murong Shuai to Ling Yutian. Sect leader Ling, I'm not doing this to hold all power, but because the circumstances demand it. All here know that Bailey Jingwei is leading the other camp, with nothing holding him back. I need to do the same, and not out of arrogance in my infallibility, but that even if there are things overlooked, you might not notice them but will distract me from doing my job with your actions. Ugh. All tensed and gave a dry smile. Sergua, what are you? Ha ha ha, sorry, it may be hard to accept, but it's the truth. We are all clear on the fact that the war is a game between me and Bailey Jingwei. No matter what move we make, only we grasp the full implication it entails. Anyone watching would be blind to its intricacies, so it's best to not interfere. Just do what I say and don't ask questions. Are you calling us fools? Bu Xingyan's face twitched and fell. We can't even join the fight between you two? Zhuo Fan smiled. We each know ourselves best, which is why this is the second reason I don't need assistance. Ha ha ha. Ha ha! That's a mockery if I ever heard one. You just got out of jail and started acting smug. See how I throw you back in. Bu Xingyan grew enraged as he let anger get the best of him. Even attacking Ling Yutian jumped before him. Sect leader Bu, you're in the Sea Bright sect, can you please have some of the courtesy of a guest? Sergio could have just as well been a simple guest, and you'd have still had no right to treat him like this. Bu Xingyan's mouth twitched, gnashing his teeth as he glared at Zhuo Fan. Sergio, forgive me, sect leader Bu is a bit rash. Don't mind it. He let out a deep breath, sighed, and bowed to Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan smirked at Bu Xingyan. No worries, I've seen my fair share of mangy curs. I don't have time to pay attention to all the barking, ha ha ha. Chapter 1046, Weird Order. Chapter 1046, Weird Order. Proofreader Papatonks. Why you? Bu Xingyan's eyes were bloodshot, but Ling Yutian's glare made him flinch back. The latter turned to Zhuo Fan with a bow. Sir Zhuo, please. Allow me to introduce you to the current affairs before you pass your instructions. Ha ha ha, the front lines are strong, with east and west. That won't be necessary. Zhuo Fan held up his hand, his eyes flashing. Sect leader Ling, I already said that Bailey Jingwei is a politician. His attention is not on the front lines, so we don't need to give them any either. Ignore the front lines? Murong Shuai winced, never hearing this kind of reason before, and defied his logic. As the Grand Marshal, you refuse others' advice, you ignore the battlefield, so how then do you intend to fight? How do you intend to command? I may not be versed in the art of war. I have seen my fair share of leaders and their armies, but never one to give blind orders like you. Who do you think you are, divinity? Behold and witness my divinity, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan shrugged, leaning into the tutor chair as he ordered. Have all lands beside northern lands withdraw all troops. Give up the borders and fall back to the center. Like Double Dragon Manor for western lands, The other lands must have their own main base. They have 3 days to gather in their respective bases. What? Everyone went wide-eyed, Ling Yutian's hands still gesturing at the maps shaking from fright. As Sergeois come again? All lands are to fall back to their bases? That will leave the enemy free rein to march into our homes, and we'll have a harder time fighting back. That's like giving the lands to the enemy. Sergeois, please. You don't trust me? Shuafan scanned their eyes, mocking. Fight it yourself then, and leave me out of it. No, Sergeois, we only find this order a bit ridiculous. We just don't know what Sir is aiming for by doing this. Ling Yutian saw the others looking bleak as well. Shuafan smirked. Didn't I tell you? When I make a move, you won't see its truths. Isn't this obstruction of duty? You are to relay my order at once. Any delay from your part will lead to defeat and disaster, which is on you. Shuafan rolled his eyes and exasperatedly placed one leg over the other, taking his time to relish the song he was humming. The war and anything were of no concern to him, but that did not apply to the rest of the frantic leaders here, who were a distressed and nervous wreck. Shuafan's foresight and insight were unquestionable. Stealing Heaven's sealing sword from them, helping Shangguan clan retrieve Soaring Sword and fighting Bailey Jingwei spoke for themselves. Then there was now Shuafan throwing out a random order with no rhyme nor reason, no different from suicide, and expecting them to just accept it. By following this over, they thought, would lead to the fall of the 3 lands in under a month. And by denying it, the lands might hold their ground for a year or so, at best. Just what secrets does his order hold? The oldies looked at each other, stumped, filled with hesitation. Sect leader Ling, brother, I told you this guy's head is filled with rotten plans. Don't be fooled. He's making every land commit suicide. Murong Shua's decisive tone cut the awkward mood, using this chance to get back at Shuafan and expose his foul deeds. The others frowned, eyeing the casual Shuafan undecided still. Shuafan smirked. The only reason you bowed and scraped for my help was to get you out of this crisis, no? Since you're going to die anyway, you're afraid of going a couple days earlier? Humph, bunch of ninnies. Guard. Ling Yutian had enough of worrying and ordered. Notify all lands to fall back. Abandon the front lines and return to their bases. They have 3 days. Yes, sir. The man flew away to pass his words. The others panicked. Sect leader Ling. Anything is better than nothing. Do any of you have a better idea? Ling Yutian sighed and said, Sergeois, we've followed your wishes. What do we do next? Shuafan smiled. Wait. The next step comes after 3 days. In 3 days we'll see the effect? Ling Yutian startled him and everyone else. Shuafan nodded. Yep, haste makes waste. Lighten up, the lands won't perish in 3 days. Also, since you trust me, I will cooperate on my side as well. Shuafan turned serious and gestured for a merchant guard to lend him his ear. You can go back and report to Wu Ranong at once and restore the company in the central area. No, in every other land than northern lands that is at war. So soon? But with the lands at war. It's only war that offers us unique opportunities. While the factions fight, we may still be walking in shadows, but we will expand greatly from it as well. Once dust settles, the chance will be missed as well. Shuafan's eyes flashed. Pay particular attention to the central area and move fast and hard. I want Bailey Jingwei's worst nightmare to come alive before his eyes. He won't be able to stop it then, ha ha ha. The man nodded and bowed. I obey, sir. He took the other caravan guards and left. Watching them go with such haste, Ling Yutian was bemused. Sergeois, I had our own men work in tandem with your movements. Devil Mountain may be a hidden sect and doesn't involve itself in mortal affairs, but it still holds sway among mortals. I had them make contact and help you stir some trouble for our dear friend Bailey Jingwei. Truly? Ling Yutian lit up with joy and bowed. I am most honored to have the great Devil Mountain offer assistance. Thank you, sir, for everything. The others were also happy they made the right choice in putting Shuafan in the lead of the Alliance's army. He even got his sect involved, which was a cause for celebration. Shuafan was modest. It's nothing, just a few mortal forces. Though my sect is hidden and away from mortal affairs, ha ha ha. It's not to help you by any means, just expanding my power while I'm at it. I'm not a soup kitchen, so I don't work for free, ha ha. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes, while Murong Shui stared intently at him, like looking at a criminal. Your game won't work, not while I'm watching your every move. In Western lands, Alliance leader Luo Yihai with Zhuge Changfeng, Lin Wucheng and Yu Ming were in the commanding tent discussing plans with a sigh. People, it's been 3 long days of analysis and scouting. Do you have any idea how to fight the enemy? Luo Yihai looked haggard as he turned to his aides. The 3 shook their heads in helplessness. Yu Ming was the most versed in military and pointed at the enemy camp on the map. The enemy is Zither Sword King, of no military background and knows nothing about leading soldiers. Their ranks aren't tight either. Anyone else would have had an easy time fighting them, but they have the advantage in power. Their 20 million men are most experts, with Zither Sword King the strongest of them all, able to fight thousands. No matter what tactic, what maneuver, what trap we use, their power will mow us down with a frontal assault each time. Yu Ming glanced at Lin Wucheng. Don't look at me. Since you can't figure it out, you think I can? My opponent ain't any weaker than yours. Lin Wucheng sighed and shook his head. All strategy is based on overt and covert tactics. Overt regards formations, while covert hide intentions to a sinister outcome. However, while Zither Sword King leads the army, a practitioner, the strategist is none other than the best official in the central area, Beili Jingwei. He is skilled in overt and covert alike. It's impossible to grasp any weakness to exploit. I have taken a look at the situation and Beili Jingwei has made his deployment unbreakable. The only chance I can gather is from the rear. Rear? Yes, he is attacking the 4 lands with an army each, so the lands would have no time for anything else, a masterstroke. The 4 lands can no longer take care of each other in this case. But it's also because of this that he leaves his back open. We need to make a commotion in his rear and will force him to withdraw in panic. Lin Wucheng spoke solemnly, pointing at the map. However, all paths out of the 4 lands are blocked. Who will reach his rear? That's why the only weakness can't be leveraged. Beili Jingwei's armies march with all their might upon us, trapping us and leaving us no room to win. Chapter 1047, Heaven's Secrets. Chapter 1047, Heaven's Secrets. Proofreader Papatonks. Luo Yihai overlooked the tactical map in deep worry. Yes, with the 4 lands under attack, making use of the front to gain any semblance of success is an impossibility. Sirling, is there any chance whatsoever that we can attack the central area's heart? Rumors, divide and conquer, or any tactic to raise doubts and crumble their military offensive. Well. Ling Wucheng shook his head, turning to Zhuge Changfeng, passing the baton. Clan head, Zhuge Changfeng has once been an empire's prime minister. He is much better suited for this, ha ha ha. Luo Yihai looked on to Zhuge Changfeng with hope. The Luo clan's great steward Zhuge Changfeng rolled his eyes and sighed. Sirling, you're so sly, knowing there's no solution yet dragging me into this. Are you mocking me? Ling Wucheng lowered his head with a grin. Steward Zhuge, there's no weakness we can exploit inside their hearts either? Luo Yunhai's eyes shook and his heart fell. Zhuge Changfeng pondered before sighing. Clan head, forgive my incompetence. The Sword Star Empire has been a baffling nation since inception. Normal tactics don't work on it. In normal empires, the emperor would be in constant dissent with his officials, one side striving to better the other. And while a direct military offensive would show little result, inciting the enemy court would pit them against each other. Luo Yihai knew this all too well. His godfather was a victim of it. He hated these suspicions between the lord and its subjects, but also knew their value in any empire, no matter how strong. Suspicions between the lord and the officials would lead to mistakes that brought about collapse. One could have a godly commander and flawless officials. As long as the emperor mistrusted them, he would do all he could to relieve them of their lives. What came next was the enemy nation having their trouble while the crisis was averted. In this situation, Luo Yihai, a modest man, found this underhanded tactic the most plausible. In any case, all is fair in love and war. Winning was all that mattered, with no tactic being avoided, be it overt or covert, though judging by Shuga Changfeng's look, such a tactic wouldn't work. Clan head, the Emperor Beili Jingshi is no less able as Beili Jingwei, thus making such a tactic fruitless. But the crux is the Sword Star Empire's structure, unlike your average empire, and sowing dissent won't work on it. The Emperor and the Prime Minister are appointed by Beili Yutian. This leads to no conflict between the two and thus no suspicions. Duga Changfeng sighed. The Emperor doesn't fear his minister, and the same goes for the latter. The two work together, like a double-headed dragon in ruling the empire. And even if, by absurd, dissent works, Beili Jingwei's military command won't be affected by the Emperor. The only appropriate target for dissent is Invincible Sword. Alas, he's a Manan, thinking himself on top of the world and finding even the Sword Star Empire beneath him. Telling him that Beili Jingwei is against him, he won't believe it, or even care for that matter. He is certain that nothing in this world can make him fall, and thus nothing matters. Yeah, Invincible Sword is beyond arrogant, which makes him a worse target for dissent because he doesn't care in the first place, no matter how things play out. Leng Wuchang hesitated. Fear is the easiest emotion one can leverage. Without it, he won't argue with vile people. Zhuge Changfeng eyed him. Sir Leng, who are you calling vile? Steward Zhuge, you understand that some debatable methods are unavoidable in diplomacy. I'm not cursing you. Leng Wuchang chuckled. Zhuge Changfeng smirked. We're all wallowing in trickery, with neither one of us any better. But isn't it all for the swift rise of the clan? True, we had to pull strings and make sure our new allies would see dangers outside the protective embrace of our Luo alliance. Hasn't Steward Zhuge put us here for this reason? Had we been any upright, Steward Zhuge would have never chosen us as clan heads' aides. Yu Ming sighed. They all had to nod at that, with Leng Wuchang resuming. Clan head is just too morally bound, leaving the dirty work to us. Only now we three have the same enemy yet can help clan head overcome this problem. I wonder how Steward Zhuge would approach this. The four looked lonely, with Luo Yuhai still feeling the loss of his friend. Brother Zhuge, I thank you for all you did in the battle with Jianrong and preventing the people of Tianyu from suffering. Now all of Western lands are in peril. Just where are you? What should I do? Yuhai! A soft voice suddenly broke the silence as two figures burst into the tent. Luo Yuhai gasped. Sister Yuer, what is it? Since Yuer has finished her current supply orders for the Luo alliance, we came to see you. Luo Yunchang smiled at her brother, looking fondly. Yuhai, you've been looking a bit thin lately. You need to take care of yourself. Luo Yuhai chuckled. It's fine. The other three bowed to the girls. Greetings, young miss, madam. There's no need for courtesy. You have been helping Yuhai all this time, and I am grateful to you for relieving some of his worries. Luo Yunchang replied in kind, with the three bowing again. Young miss is too kind. Husband, we heard Sister Lei say the enemy camp is showing movement. They're going to attack soon. Do you have any plans? Yuer went to Luo Yunhai's side and looked concerned. He and the other three men all shook their heads. Yuer fell silent before smiling. Husband, don't worry too much. Sister Schwanger had gone to her ancestral home to pray for a solution to her ancestors' spirits. She said heaven might help us turn things around. Holy Maiden has seen the disaster coming and has divined that overcoming it is beyond impossible. It's no less difficult from Tianyu's last war. All we can do now is do our best and follow heaven's will. It is up to it if we are to perish. Luo Yuhai shook his head with a bitter look. Yuer rushed to console him. Husband, Sister Schwanger said the ancestors' divination is far more precise than hers and may work in our favor. Don't be discouraged. Hasn't the last crisis of Tianyu been solved as well? That was with Brother Zhuge's help. Holy Maiden said he operates outside heaven's will and can change it. How then could we, mere mortals, fight the heavens? The others' hearts sank. Zhuge Changfeng and the others refused to believe this, that they would rather fight the heavens above. But as matters stood, it was out of their hands. They had no hope but to trust in fate. No matter what, let's wait for Schwanger's reading. If heaven can't be swayed, we just do our best to fight it. Luo Yuchang spoke with determination. The others nodded. Whoosh. Yun Shuang rushed into the tent and gasped for breath. A sliver of hope just appeared. What? The fates are shifting. Yun Shuang panted, yet her eyes glimmered with hope. I've read the heavens with the ancestor spirit's help when going to my home and saw total demise, but then the fates changed. A power unlike any other is shaping fate, presenting us with a sliver of hope. We may fight this war yet. Luo Yuhai gave a shaky question. Holy Maiden, what do you mean? It's just like the last great war of Tianyu. Someone outside fate is fighting it. The central area's certainty of winning against the four lands might crumble. Luo Yuhai gasped. Another man like Brother Zhua is involved in this war? But Holy Maiden, didn't you say there are no other people outside fate? How come another one appeared so soon? I am unclear. Could it be a flood of unchained people? Frowning, Yun Shuang looked confused. But with how big the world is, there's a chance a second one had to appear. Luo Yuhai squinted, incredulous. People are born between heaven and earth. Just how coincidental this is, for a person outside fate to appear right when the need is dire? People, I have a strong feeling this person is known to us, as if. Luo Yuhai trailed off, even he felt his guess was outrageous. Their disappointment would be too great if it proved to be false. Yet his eyes were filled with excited tears, his heart drumming in his chest. Brother Zhua, have you come back? Chapter 1048, Back. Chapter 1048, Back. Proofreader Papatonks. Marshal Luo, orders are here. An elder came into the commanding tent as he boomed. The hopeful, curious, and tense gazes had him pause. What's wrong? Luo Yuhai smiled and said, Commander Tauba, what urgent order has you running here? Rai Tuoba Taizan, you were quite cocky when you were invited into the Luo Alliance, and even gave us many conditions. It's only due to our kind clan head, and his respect for seniors, that he agreed without delay. If it were me, humph! Ling Wuchang mocked. So what is it this time, that you have to relay the order in person? Back then you insisted on being on equal grounds with clan head. Not even the 7 houses joining the Luo Alliance first were treated as such. Yet a defeated Qianrong commander. Sir Leng! Luo Yuhai cut him off with a look, cupping his hands to Tuoba Taizan. Forgive me, Steward Leng has been rude to Commander. Please accept my apologies in his stead. No, Marshal Luo, it's I who is sorry. Tuoba Taizan sighed. Sir Ling is right. I was very rude when I joined Luo Alliance, proud of my seniority. But that was because of being a defeated commander, thinking that I would receive a cold reception. I never thought I'd see Marshal Luo to be so courteous and magnanimous. I feel ashamed. I've come to know many of the Qianrong imperial family's secrets, and when I should have been silenced, the Luo Alliance took me in and protected me. I thank you so much, Marshal Luo, for saving my life. Tuoba Taizan gave a deep bow and Luo Yuhai went to help him up. Commander Tauba, you're an undefeated god of war like my godfather. It is Luo Alliance's honor to have you. I could never watch as a hero commander ends up framed. Commander, you needn't trouble yourself over such small things. Tuoba Taizan was touched by Luo Yunhai's respect, and grabbed his hand. Luo clan's righteousness is without equal. Commander, you're exaggerating. Luo Yunhai smiled then grabbed his hand hard. Luo Yunchang and Yue were watching contentedly. Only Leng Wucheng remained unfazed, speaking with Zhuge Changfeng. Old man, you'd think the old commander would be as excited if he knew you had a hand in making the Qianrong Emperor wish him dead? Zhuge Changfeng shot him a sharp glare. Don't let clan head hear you. Let only us know of these dark things we do. The old coot was conceited when clan head invited him in, but now look at him. If not for clan head having a soft spot for him and with us needing to expand our military, you'd think I'd waste time over this? Anyway, it's our duty to help clan head in his plans, the same thing Steward Zhua had done back in the day. The only reason my trick worked was because the Qianrong Emperor already had a bad impression of the old man. In the end it's the conflict between lord and official that led to this. I only revealed the issue to him and helped him out. Or once the situation devolved any more, they would be at each other's throats, and there was no saving we could have done. Even if clan head finds out at some point, I did it for the greater good. Leng Wuchang nodded. Who hasn't? Ha ha ha. Commander, you were in quite the hurry. What has you coming here in person? Luo Yuhai asked Tuo Bataizan started and then recalled his mission, presenting a jade slip in anger. Marshal Luo, this is preposterous. I don't know what those leaders are thinking about sending such an absurd order. They want all the lands beside northern lands to fall back to their bases. Isn't it clearly making it worse? The defenses and arrays on the borders are our greatest asset. Leaving them behind will give the enemy free rein to cull us down at every turn. Just what are those guys doing? Is this true? Luo Yuhai gasped, reading the jade slip at once and his face sinking. Letting the enemy take our greatest defense is simply suicidal. Tuo Bataizan nodded in anger. Precisely, those morons haven't ever stepped foot on a battlefield and now they start giving orders to us seasoned generals. Our defeat is certain now. Though even defending wouldn't assure a win, we'll at least last for a lot longer. Marshal Luo, you're the exalted Double Dragon's appointed chief of Western Lands' defenses before their departure. All of us will listen to you. What should we do? When the general's away, the Lord's orders can't reach him. Luo Yuhai threw the jade slip as he spoke harshly. No one with the slightest military common sense would ever follow such an idiotic order. They're treating war as a game. Yes. Those leaders must have lost their minds to send such an order. One land's leaders might propose it, but the other three actually accepted it. Are they all idiots? Tuo Bataizan ranted, his anger burning brightly. I just can't believe our leaders would be so useless. Just how on earth did the four lands even survive for so long against the central area's attacks? The others nodded and Leng Wuchang spoke. Clan head, no matter who issued this infantile order, it comes from straight above. Refusing, even if winning, will incur punishment. Maybe it will mark the end of our place in Western lands. We have nothing to gain from it, so why still fight? There are some things a man must do. A soldier must do his duty. I fight to stop the central area's oppression and trample of the Western lands so that the people can be safe and not for the appreciation of the higher-ups. Luo Yuhai huffed and shouted. As long as there's even a man alive from Luo clan, we will defend Western lands. I am a marshal of Western lands for a reason and I intend to uphold my duty. Let those leaders go to hell, I still have a conscience. The others' hearts thumped, looking at him in admiration. Luo Yuchang and Yue nodded in appreciation. Husband is more and more like master. He's been under Zhua Fan's influence from the start. Some things were bound to rub off on him with how close they were. Luo Yuchang smiled. Tuo Bataizan gave a thumbs up. Marshal Luo is a true man. Since Marshal Luo lives for Western lands, then I shall join you in this endeavor, ha ha ha. Since clan head has made his decision, we shall abide by it. Leng Wuchang and the other two bowed. Clan head is upright and frank, but we cannot let you fall here. What Steward Zhua left us to do is to assure this, by doing things the clan head can't. Leave the mediating with the leaders to us. But before that, we need to understand what they're thinking. Commander Talba, which leader proposed it, who was against it, and who delivered it? We need a clear picture to break clan head from the stain of defying orders. Tuo Bataizan frowned. I'm not sure either. I had someone investigate when the order came. It's been a day now. I want to know whose brain is rotten to send such idiotic orders. What right does he have to command us? Report! A shout announced the coming of a guard. Tuo Bataizan smirked. Here he comes, he, come in. Whoosh. The soldier knelt before them and spoke. Marshal Luo, Commander Talba, the leaders have given us a reply to the order's source. It's from the newly appointed Grand Marshal of the Alliance, the first disciple in Western lands, Zhua Fan. What? Everyone stared agape. Zhua Fan? He's not renamed, is he? No, he said he's the best disciple in Western lands. Yue started, then got excited. It's Master. He's alive! Only he is the real best in Western lands, the only one to defeat Yi Lin. Luo Yuhai shook all over from shock, but then got so excited he teared up. I just knew Brother Zhua, the man outside fate, has come back. Yeah, only he is outside heaven's influence. Schwanger beamed. I'll have to trouble you once more, Steward Zhua, to save the people. PR, LOL, so we gonna take back all that defamatory language? Haha. Chapter 1049, Opponent. Chapter 1049, Opponent. Proofreader Papatonks. Woo. Luo Yunchang could no longer contain her emotions. She had shed so many bitter tears these years and now could not help but cry again. Yue consoled her. Sister Yunchang, Master being alive is a good thing. Why? That rotten bastard, he hadn't sent a single word of how he's doing, letting us think he was gone, with even his corpse destroyed. Wiping the tears, Luo Yunchang whined, but her eyes were dancing with joy, with a little hint of resentment hidden within. I'll find that dead guy and have him return what interest he owes me from these years plus more. The others smiled, with Yunshuang looking happy as she said, Sister Yunchang, you're not the only girl who Brother Zhua owes. Have you prepared yourself? Luo Yunchang blushed and glared at her. Fine, you can come. Of course, grandfather had me stay by his side and help him, so coming along is only natural. Schwanger giggled. Toba Taizan waved the soldier away, then said, Miss Luo, I hope you don't mind, but take Liena with you as well. Ever since Shuafan left us 5 years ago, Liena could no longer smile. 5 years ago? Luo Yunchang gave him an odd look. Commander Tauba, have you got it wrong, perhaps? After Tianyu's war, Zhuafan had gone to the demon scheming sect, then made his name in the Double Dragon Manor before he had been trapped and lost his life. When did he have the time to see your daughter? Toba Taizan shrugged. It was when news of his death went around everywhere. He appeared in Qianrong, ruining beast-taming sect and vanishing again. Lianer misses him with a passion. Steward Zhua destroyed the beast-taming sect? Lun Wucheng said. Why hasn't Double Dragon Manor's investigation in Qianrong Empire brought any results? Toba Taizan shook his head with a sigh. It involved the Qianrong imperial family's shame. His Majesty ordered everything covered up. Zhuafan only destroyed the beast-taming sect while His Majesty ordered me to kill those royal sons and the casualties that followed. We kept our lips sealed when Double Dragon Manor came around, letting not a single word about this or Zhuafan, afraid the secret might leak. Finally, His Majesty wanted to kill me to silence me as well, but it's all thanks to the Luo Alliance that I'm alive with my family. Yeah, we got it from here. Lin Wucheng cut him off. I just want to ask one thing. Commander has been one of us ever since you joined the Luo Alliance. You knew of Steward Zhua's survival and saw the young miss in pain, so why didn't you say anything? Yeah, why didn't you? Luo Yunchang stared daggers at him. I've always been respectful to you, senior, yet you're so cruel. Why haven't you spoken of it to any of us? They all surrounded him with savage glares. Luo clan's usual righteousness and upright stance forgave everything, except this one time. They deserved to be petty for once. You knew how much we care for Steward Zhui, yet you said nothing, not even if he was alive. You're evil. Toba Taizan sighed. I had my reasons for not revealing it. I've been a commander in Qianrong and a loyal official to His Majesty, even if he discarded me. Saying anything would lead to the Qianrong imperial family's scandal coming out. I am loyal to my country and could not afford such a thing to rock my home. Also, I noticed Zhuafan wanted obscurity. Saving me and my family, the least I could do was abide by his wishes. The others nodded. The old commander was loyal to a fault, so they could understand. Humph, the least you could have done is tell me. Luo Yunchang would not have it, glaring at Toba Taizan in anger. Commander Tauba, do you have any idea how many tears I've spilled for that heartless man? Toba Taizan bowed. I am terribly sorry, young miss, ha ha ha. It's all in the past now. Brother Zhua is back, so let's leave it be. Luo Yuhai understood the commander's loyalty, and shielded him from his sister's wrath. Where were we again? Oh, the order, It's really ingenious. Tuoba Taizan spoke firmly, his eyes twinkling. Ling Wucheng's face twitched. Commander Tauba, did we not just hear you call the leader an infantile moron? That was when I didn't know who gave it. Tuoba Taizan raised an eyebrow. Anyone else would have rotten brains for giving such an order. But Zhuo Fan is someone I once fought with, who loves to be mysterious. He has guile, he has awareness, striking out of nowhere with his baffling plans. Who can understand them? That's why I am sure this order is no different. Zhuge Chanfeng waved him off with a smile. Commander, did you notice something to call it ingenious? It's because I can't find it ingenious. If any random guy can figure it out, wouldn't the enemy do the same? What'd be the point of it then? That's why I'm saying Zhuo Fan has some weird yet masterful plans, despite not being in the military. This is what makes them so dangerous. Tuoba Taizan watched them in sympathy. Luo Alliance's sages, did any of you notice anything? The trio shook their heads. Steward Zhuo's style has no guidelines. We wouldn't have suffered at his hand if we could read him back then, ha ha ha. Then the order. Tuoba Taizan turned to Luo Yunhai and grinned. Luo Yunhai's eyes flashed and shouted. Notify all Western Lands forces. They are to make swift departure for Double Dragon Manor. Yes, sir. The guards outside shouted and ran to their duties. At the border of the Central Area and Northern Lands, in the Central Area Army's commanding tent, Prime Minister Bailey Jingwei sat in the main chair with the dragon-cleaving Sword King at his side glancing at him. Bailey Jingwei smiled. Dragon-cleaving Sword King, it must be what you wanted, leading the army to attack Northern Lands. What do you mean? Dan Qingshan kept a smile on. Bailey Jingwei leaned over. Sword King is from Western Lands and knows it the most, making an attack on it most suitable. But I know Sword King cares too much for Western Lands still, and am afraid that you'd be overcome by emotion and would let your old friends go. Unlike Sword King Feiyun, jumping to attack Eastern Lands the moment he heard. He hates the Shangguan clan to the core and wants to end them at his own hand and return to glory. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, Prime Minister Bailey's consideration has us terrified. Dan Qingshan smirked. Prime Minister, we've been waiting for so long in Northern Lands, so we must be waiting for the right moment to attack, yes? Bailey Jingwei nodded. Correct, Patriarch has long since ventured deeper in Northern Lands. I am just waiting to coordinate with him, and take it all in one strike, ha ha ha. Report. A shout came from outside the tent. See, the time is night. Bailey Jingwei grinned with pride. Enter. A soldier burst in and bowed with a jade slip in his hands. A message from within containing valuable information. We're all friends here, speak. Bailey Jingwei picked up a wine cup from the table without a care. Is See Bright Sect's barrier broken? Ha ha ha, it'll make Patriarch's attack that much easier. The guard bowed. Prime Minister, See Bright Sect's barrier is broken and the heaven-sealing sword was stolen. But from what the jade slip contains, it's not him who did it, but a third party. Someone is after Heaven's sealing sword as well? The cup shook in Bailey Jingwei's hand, then chuckled. No matter, as long as the barrier is down, they can no longer hide. It matters not who did it. In any case, once Patriarch steps in, the Heaven's sealing sword is as good as his, ha ha ha. The man's brow shook. His jade slip isn't to inform, but to warn the Prime Minister to be cautious. The one who stole the sword is very sharp. 3 days ago was in jail, but he talked his way into earning the respect and worship of all leaders of the Alliance, making him the Grand Marshal of their forces. He said this person is highly likely to be the greatest opponent Prime Minister ever had. He hopes that the Prime Minister will exercise extreme caution. My greatest opponent? Bailey Jingwei mocked. I've been going unchallenged among the lands for years and hardly are there people that I pay attention to. Since when do I need a spy to tell me to be careful of anyone? Ha ha ha, absurd. Now who is he speaking of? The man took a deep breath and spoke. He said he was Western Land's best disciple, Zhuo Fan. He had also fought with Sir in the Central Area, under the alias Gu Yifan. What? Zhuo Fan Gu Yifan? Bailey Jingwei's hand flashed and took out a jade slip. But then he showed a crazed smile. I had men investigate western lands to look into Gu Yifan, only to find an otherworldly genius, Zhuo Fan. I knew they were one and the same, ha ha ha. Good, he is indeed a good adversary. We meet again, only this time, we will see just who will have full grasp of the lands, old enemy. Chapter 1050, The Next Step. Chapter 1050, The Next Step. Proofreader Papatonks. The aged hands trembled, but as the initial surprise faded, Dan Qingshan curled up his lips. The enemy commander is Gu Yifan? Yes, or better yet, Zhuo Fan, ha ha ha. Leaning on his chair, Beili Jingwei sighed, his eyes flashing in excitement. Dan Qingshan sighed. It's hard to believe he's still alive and now becoming our enemy. By the looks of it, Prime Minister, you seem quite happy to find out the same guy you were so insistent on killing last time is now very much alive and in charge of the Alliance's military. Yeah, I wanted him gone then due to the danger he represented. But after seeing the war truly gone, I felt a sense of loss and regret. Such a good adversary was only met once, yet I couldn't even have a true and honest match with him. It was a true shame. Then I found out he survived, and while resentful, the prominent emotion was joy. Now look how soon we are back to fighting each other, and this time we'll have a real match. With the Sword Star Empire against the four lands, besides the experts, are around equal in military might. It comes down to us and our tactics, ha ha ha, though it's clear by Prime Minister's deployment that you have the upper hand. To the point, in only a couple steps you will be ready to strike. While he has many steps to compensate for to catch up to Sir's deployment. The war looks settled since it started. He'll have a hard time turning it around with so little time at his disposal. Dan Qingshan smiled. Beili Jingwei smiled. The world isn't fair. I may hold the advantage now, but we both have around the same assets, his almost equal to mine. It's all down to his skill to overcome the danger. Ha ha ha, Dragon Cleaving Sword King. Who do you think will win this time? Prime Minister, why even ask? Am I not leading the army against northern lands? Do I not want to win? Dan Qingshan's brow shook. Beili Jingwei gave him a long look, then burst out laughing, his eyes shining. Dragon Cleaving Sword King, I just want to hear your take on it. Last time, the guy had made a truly devious escape from right before our eyes. It's a loss I will never soon forget. I just had him on the ropes, hanging by a thread, so how could I have let him escape? Beili Jingwei smiled at Dan Qingshan, the latter feeling the cold within. Beili Jingwei wasn't blaming anyone, but doubts sprouted as to Dan Qingshan's role in Zhuo Fan's survival. Dan Qingshan squinted, his mind processing, while Beili Jingwei was staring back with a cryptic smile. Report! A sudden shout broke the awkward mood as a soldier rushed in and on his knee. He held 3 jade slips. Prime Minister, Sword King, the 3 lands battlefields have sent jade slips. The eastern, western and southern armies are all withdrawing. They await Prime Minister's orders. Beili Jingwei never left his gaze off Dan Qingshan as he chuckled. The 3 lands move as one. Then that guy has made his move. Dragon Cleaving Sword King, what do you think of it? Abandoning their borders means they've thrown away their defensive positions. Now we can go straight in and take the lands in one fell swoop. Pouring himself a drink, Dan Qingshan spoke. Only such a suicidal action defies logic. The land's borders falling means the sects and clans are on their own, with nothing standing behind them to help hold their ground. Not even your average man would give such an idiotic decision, let alone that twisted punk. What I think is that a trick is at play here. Beili Jingwei smiled a nod. Yes, Dragon Cleaving Sword King is right. With his cunning, he'd never make such a rash decision. He must have a plan, or... Beili Jingwei's eyes shone with another possibility. Give off the image that he has won. What does that mean? Blending reality with illusion is part of warfare. Beili Jingwei explained. The 3 lands forces have no chance against ours, falling in a year at the latest. But he had given a radical order to disturb our morale, to raise our suspicion where there isn't any and force us to retreat out of caution. This would give them more time to prepare. This might be an empty city tactic. Dan Qingshan nodded. By going straight in, Even if it is the empty city tactic, we'll find out soon anyway. Leaving behind such a defensive position would only lead to a crushing defeat. He's risking too much with such a daring move. And if it's not the empty city tactic, hiding something else, we'll be in danger if we follow and might even suffer heavy losses. That's why we'll wait for his next step. The next step? Yes. Bailey Jingwei smiled in confidence. He wants to play games with me, but he must entice me first. A mere empty city tactic that might not even play as he wishes is bound to have a follow-up. Watching his next move will let me know his intentions. If there's an ambush to it, he will try anything to make me take the bait. Report. Another shout echoed and a guard barged in looking anxious. Prime Minister, His Majesty sent word of an uprising in every domain in the central area. The city lords and the soldiers are having a hard time fighting back. He asks for swift reinforcements. Central area is revolting? Dan Qingshan cried out in shock. How? We made sure every area in the central area was secured before marching. None would dare act out, so why would they do it now? How is it so serious that not even the city lords' forces can cope? Bailey Jingwei mulled it over and grinned. I see it now, a parlor trick. Dragon cleaving sword king, can't you see it? See what? His linked plans. Bailey Jingwei gave a knowing smile of confidence. I now know why he used the empty city tactic. He first had them fall back to affect my mental state and hesitate on what to do. Then he had the Alliance's spies hidden in the central area cause a disturbance so that I'll be forced to quell it. It would lead to a lower casualty rate on the lands and also strike back at us in this timely manner while we aren't ready. Through this chance, he can even have us surrounded, storming the central area. It will turn our hard plan of attacking them all useless by attacking us in the rear. With the morale in shambles, he will have an easy time turning it around. Dan Qingshan nodded. It does seem like it. Prime Minister's wisdom has no bounds. Then His Majesty's request. Report to His Majesty to hold on. In a month I will take the 3 lands, then quell the chaos. Bailey Jingwei spoke with a grin. The soldier bowed and rushed to convey the message Dan Qingshan spoke, addressing it after the 3 lands won't. Dragon cleaving sword king, just how much trouble could some random spies cause anyway? To even think about toppling the core of our Sword Star Empire. Ha ha ha. Bailey Jingwei didn't care at all. It's all Zhuofan's tactic to split our forces, but I'm too smart to fall for it. Also, I'll be sure to make him suffer for using the empty city tactic on me. Tell the 3 sword kings to march into the 3 lands head on. I want them to take their bases within a month. Yes, sir. A soldier outside replied and left. Bailey Jingwei's eyes flashed with victory at Dan Qingshan's pensive expression. In the main hall of Sea Bright Sect, Zhuofan lounged in the main seat with unspeakable boredom. Around him were the same oldies, frantic and distraught. Report. A disciple rushed to them and bowed. The others immediately asked, What is it? There's a report from the front. The central area's Sword Star Empire is under revolt, with the Emperor asking Bailey Jingwei for reinforcements. What? They all stared agape, then turned a bright face to Zhuofan. Great Sir Zhua. Devil Mountain is incredible to even raise chaos in the central area's heart. Bailey Jingwei will now have no choice but go back, ha ha ha. But, the disciple continued with a pained look. Scouts say Bailey Jingwei isn't heeding the Emperor's order, actually telling the other 3 sword kings to press on into the lands. Now the borders have fallen and the armies are advancing towards the land's bases with nothing standing in their way. What? Everyone shuddered, plunged into despair from their high. Chapter 1051, Cooperation. Chapter 1051, Cooperation. Proofreader Papatonks. Murong Shui frowned and sighed. Bailey Jingwei isn't so easy to fool, seeing through the empty city tactic. What now? Once he figures out the ruse, it'll be disastrous. Ling Yuntian turned to Zhuofan for help. Sir Zhua, what do we do next? Please tell us. Murong Shui smirked and got before Ling Yuntian, and showing no courtesy this time as she reproached. Sect leader Ling, how can you still put your trust in him? It's because of his dumb idea that we lost 3 lands. Asking any more of his help would lead to the loss of northern lands as well. Even if you don't listen, you'll still lose. What's that got to do with me? TCH. Xuefan scoffed. Murong Shui glared at him. Ling Yutian ignored Murong Shui as all the elders awaited Xuefan's saving grace. Xuefan smirked, being awfully obtuse. I've expected this to happen, so rest assured that everything is going according to plan. Humph, more bragging. The enemy saw through your empty city tactic, and yet you still say that? Murong Shui mocked him at every chance. Xuefan smirked. Miss Shui, restrain your wild speculation. I have never said I was using the empty city tactic, now have I? It's only your biased assumption. I had planned for them to invade the lands from the start, to lure them in. Shouldn't we be glad the enemy is playing alone? Luring? Everyone gasped. Murong Shui grew more outraged. Lure? You take us all for military ignoramus? Luring means drawing the enemy into a trap or a favorable position to attack. But from your order, the 3 lands' armies have set no ambush, all going back to their bases. What's the point in luring them into your home, to kill you? What do women know of war? It's all about applying tactics and wisdom. Xuefan smirked in disdain. 3 days have passed. Have the 3 lands fallen back to their bases? Eastern lands and southern lands had sent word they did. Ling Yutian nodded. Only western lands had used a day to question the order, wasting precious time instead of following orders, but they should be on their way still. Xuefan nodded. Western lands, with my clan head in charge of the army, ha ha ha. He's just like his godfather, so hiccups are bound to happen, acting as if not hearing the Lord's orders. But with his just command, while others need 3 days to retreat, 2 should be enough for him. I believe his ranks are the tightest and can reach. Report! A disciple barged in and bowed with a jade slip in hands. Western lands sent word their armies have reached their base, waiting for Steward was commands. Xuefan grinned. It's been so long since anyone called me that. They'll soon come knocking, I'm sure. There's no avoiding it, ha ha ha. Guard! Xuefan's eyes flashed. Each land base has a teleportation array to the northern lands. Tell all of them to come to me. Our battle will be in the northern lands. Yes, sir. The disciple rushed to comply, while the oldies were dumbfounded. Exalted Ran was even panicking. Xuefan, what are you doing? Are you calling everyone here to protect northern lands? What about our homes? Just let them take it. If you just wanted to combine the Alliance's forces to protect one area, we would have long come to an agreement instead of asking for your help. It's because we want to protect our homes as well that we found ourselves unable to come to a decision. So why? Shangguan Feixiong hesitated. Xuefan, as a Western lander, you should have sided with Western lands, so why are you focusing on the desolate northern lands? Also, what did Ling Yutian give you to play favorites? Ling Yutian was frantic to deny, speaking in a solemn tone, but his smile couldn't be hidden. Shangguan clan head, I believe in Sergua to be fighting for everyone's best interests. Cut the crap. Of course you're on his side since he's fighting for your home. But what about our homes? Are they just going to be abandoned? Shangguan Feixiong roared, unable to hold it in, feeling like he was led by the nose all along. Xuefan gave him a cold look, his tone low and rough. You're welcome to fight if you don't want your lands back. But if you do, stop and listen to my orders. The others went quiet, looking at Xuefan with hope. Like Shangguan clan had said, what would be the point of taking the lead if it's just about focusing on defending one land? Xuefan mocked. But would you have been able to focus without me? All of you know survival comes from standing together, but each of you have their own turf. Without me to mediate, you'd all rather die than choose any land to defend. You know deep down that I'm right. Shangguan Feixiong sighed. Yes, none would agree to choose a land to protect. I am from eastern lands and would never abandon my home for northern lands. Why couldn't the rest of you protect mine instead? Everyone must think the same thing. But even so, we'd rather die home than then become another sacrificial pawns. But you gave us no choice but to abandon our homes and protect us strangers. Murong Lai shouted as Shangguan Feixiong trailed off in indignation. You played us into abandoning our homes! Everyone gave a firm nod of approval. Ling Yutian was the only one beaming though, finding himself a winner. Don't be so difficult, people. Although Sergua hasn't been fair, he made a hard decision for us to unite. I promise to treat everyone with utmost respect once they come to northern lands. You're free to feel right at home. Bah! Way to rub it in, Humph. Staring daggers at him, everyone grew annoyed. This is what the average man would do. If I had stopped here, then there'd be no point in making me the Grand Marshal of the Alliance. While they were all morose, Zhuofan smiled that caught their attention. Zhuofan continued. When you thought of joining forces, you only thought of defending. But I have no concept of defense. I want them all brought here to attack. You need to risk things to gain something. To let your wife go, that part I'd rather not. Ha ha ha, in any case, the abandoned lands are now juicy meat for the starved wolves. But soon, very soon, I'll make Bailey Jingwei regret even catching a whiff of that meat, forcing him to spit them back out. Worry not, every land will be back in your hands in time. That I promise. They all were filled with hope, truly? While doubts existed, they had no choice but to play along since they were in the same boat. With the lands lost, they could only follow through Zhuofan's plan to the end to get them back. Only Murong Shui, as usual, refused to believe any word that came out of that devil's mouth. She only felt he was deluding them for something or somewhat. Rotten punk, I'm not letting you out of my sight. I'll figure out your game. With the lands lost, that leaves northern lands the only defense. I won't let you cause destruction here as well. In the double dragon manner, Luo Yuhai pointed at the tactical map with a frown. Zither Sword King is marching unhinged, right on our tail. There's nothing stopping them. And without the defenses at the border, we thought we'd last barely a month, but now I see even a week is an exaggeration. The land is doomed. Steward Zhuo's empty city tactic was seen through. Zhuge Changfeng sighed in worry. Even the three great minds thought Zhuofan used deception in his order. Now they sighed in sorrow at the loss of western lands, for the tactic failing the tent flap was pushed back and Tuoba Taizan came in distress. There's another order. All forces of the three lands are to use the teleportation array to go to northern lands. The final battle will be waged there. Everyone gasped. Going to northern lands not to flee but to fight? Was this Steward Zhuo's plan all along? It isn't a deviation? To get everyone to the northern lands? They all were perplexed at the order. What is Steward Zhuo even after? Tuoba Taizan sighed. Zhuofan is unreadable. I just can't see through him. Chapter 1052, Checkmate. Chapter 1052, Checkmate. Proofreader Papatonks. Sir Zhuo, Eastern Lands forces arrived and await your instruction. Southern Lands forces are here, awaiting instructions. Western Lands men have gathered at the Northern Lands border, awaiting instructions. Reports came into the main hall one after the other, with the others now waiting to see what he would do next. Taking a deep breath, Zhuofan held his teacup and sipped from it before putting it down with utter nonchalance. Then his eyes shone as he directed in a demanding tone. The first order was to have the three forces return to their bases in 3 days. The second order, to teleport to northern lands in 3 days as well. That makes it 6 days, right? Yes, to transfer so many people also took a lot of sacred stones. Shangguan Feixiong sighed. Zhuofan rolled his eyes. War is always costly, yet you mind such trifles? I'm not, I only want to know if it's worth it. I'll make you feel it is. Zhuofan rolled his sleeve and smirked. With the 2 orders completed, here is my final and most crucial command. The outcome of the 4 lands' war against the central area will all rest on this. They all shuddered, tense and paying close attention, everything hanging on a single order? What kind of divine trick will he use? Even the antagonistic Murong Shui had to sharpen her ears, very much curious to know. My third order. Zhuofan watched them gulp in anticipation, and he emphasized every word. All forces are to surround Invincible Sword and strangle him. What? SSS. They all shook and gasped. looking at Shuafan with dumb looks. It was beyond anything they expected from him, using all the people of the four lands in exchange for the strongest, Bailey Yutian. This is insanity. Shangguan Feixiong was in disbelief. Shuafan, aren't you mistaken? You want us to kill Bailey Yutian together? He's strong enough to mow us down by the hundreds of thousands. We'll be wiped out in minutes. For that reason I needed all other lands to join in killing him. Shuafan's eyes shone. He is very strong, but only a man with Yuan Qi. With so many of us, by coming at him one at a time, each casualty we suffer will surely drain him that much more until his head will roll. The instant it does, the battle is ours. Everyone's faces twitched, Shuafan's plan horrifying them to the core. Using millions of lives to wear down invincible sword was not something that ever crossed their minds. Shuafan's sudden order had them hesitating, even afraid. They could already see the mountains of corpses and the rivers of blood, the foul scent of iron in the air and the muddy ground with limbs sticking out. Murong Shui was outraged at the genocide and rebelled. You fiend, how can you think of something so vile? Throwing innocents against that blade will end in countless casualties. You're a stone-cold demon. This is war. Have you ever seen one without casualties? But the adversaries should at least be at their level. Invincible Sword and all those cultivators are way too far apart. You're asking them to die, to become cannon fodder. This doesn't make sense. As long as they manage to wear down even a smidgen of Invincible Sword's Yuan Qi, it makes perfect sense. Even the toughest animal collapses under the assault of too many ants. The Four Lands forces will wear him down to his grave. What would be the point of it all then? To kill just Invincible Sword. So many of us will fall, but there are Bailey Jingwei and the Sword Star Empire around still. How will we fight them? Yeah, killing just Invincible Sword will lead to the loss of nearly 2 lands in terms of life. How are we going to hold our own against Bailey Jingwei? Ling Yutian nodded as well with a frown. Has Sergua done this only to take that monster's head? Shuafan had an evil smile on his face. Yes, all of it is for this. And yes, it all comes down to the Invincible Sword's fate. By taking down him, victory is guaranteed. Whether it's Sword Star Empire or Bailey Jingwei, they're both finished. It's just that simple. Everyone looked in suspicion as he explained. Sword Star Empire is unlike the average empire, with the emperor and ministers in close relation and making it strong. They have no flaw, all brought about by Invincible Sword Bailey Yutian. A truly conceited and cautious man. Such is the current situation. Those Central Area's armies attacking us don't matter, it won't affect the Sword Star Empire. But what about the death of the Invincible Sword? With this deterrence gone, the 9 Sword Kings will grow cocky and not listen to Bailey Jingwei. Especially the 4 foreign ones, finding themselves free to do whatever. There won't even be a need for us to attack the Central Area, it will destroy itself for us. Such a grand empire is going to fall, making the loss of 2 lands' worth of lives all the more worth it. Now, isn't killing Central Area's Invincible Sword to our advantage? Everyone stared with open jaws, yet their hearts stirred. Yeah, it won't matter how heavy the losses, everything is worth the peace and future of our next generations. Only Murong Shui, per usual, nagged. Using millions of lives over one victory? Devil, what do you take life for? There won't be as many deaths if they fought the Central Area's army, but you. I'm the commander and all I see are assets and their place on the board. Shuafan gave her a cold stare. I only know that this will checkmate Bailey Jingwei. Chapter 1053, Drive. Chapter 1053, Drive. Proofreader Papatonks. Orders! On the border between Northern Lands and the Central Area, the forces of the other 3 lands had transferred, with each taking a region and awaiting orders. Western Lands experts under Luo Alliance's leadership were the same, anxiously awaiting at the border for the next radical order the northern wind carried with it a sudden shout. The soldiers landed from up above before each faction, speaking at the top of their lungs whoosh. Luo Yihai and many other generals from Western Lands were growing impatient in the commanding tent. Another order's here! I wonder what's brothers was planned in the face of such a desperate crisis. We already lost 3 lands and there's no place to retreat now. With all having been going according to Steward's plan, then the Third Order must be fighting back. Zhuge Changfeng rubbed his beard, his face solemn, his eyes shining with hope. The question is, how outrageous and weird is it this time? Ha ha ha, I'm eager to see Steward Zhua in action one more time. The others nodded, their brow quivering with excitement. Whoosh. One soldier landed in the Luo clan's camp, bowing. Grand Marshal of the Alliance, Sir Zhua, orders half of Luo Alliance's strong to defend northern lands' borders. The man presented a jade slip, one that could only come from Sea Bright sect. That's it. Luo Yihai was puzzled. Brother Zhua had us come here to protect northern lands? If it's just that, the previous preparations mean nothing. We had been better off waiting for death, and happy with it behind our strong defenses. This is unlike Steward Zhua's style. Ling Wuchang held his chin in doubt. The soldier cupped his hands with a smile. Luo clan head, this order has only been given to you, while the other forces have different tasks. The rest have other orders? What is it? They all cried out, turning heavy. The soldiers scanned their faces and spoke. Grand Marshal ordered for southern lands and eastern lands, along with western lands remaining half troops to march towards Sea Bright sect. You are to kill Invincible Sword Bailey Yutian at all costs. What? SSS. The jaws of Luo leaders hit the ground the same way it did to the oldies back in the sect. The order had been relayed at the other camps just then, and shouts of shock came without stop. The Grand Marshal's Third Order was pure insanity. He wanted to focus all their efforts into taking down the strongest monster of the 5 lands, Invincible Sword. Zhuge Changfeng, Ling Wuchang, and Yu Ming stood dumbstruck, then laughed in realization. I get it now. Steward Zhua is a genius. Ha ha ha. Only they laughed, while the rest were still looking like statues, giving them odd looks. What's going on? Why? They looked at them so wild with joy, letting their laughter free, but also sensing sorrow as tears glistened in their eyes. Steward Zhuge, Luo Yuhai began in worry. Zhuge Changfeng shook his hand and the trio gradually calmed down, turning bleak even. So many years have gone yet Steward Zhua is still the same. We just can't surpass him. Yeah. What's with you 3? Luo Yuhai was bemused. Zhuge Changfeng bowed to him and sighed. Clan head, you know of us having lost to Steward Zhua back in the day. We've been working these years in assisting clan head also to compete with him. What he did back then, we could do it too, but now, we have lost in such a way we finally accept the truth. We will never measure up to Steward Zhua's one aspect for as long as we live. What? Drive! The trio spoke in unison. Zhuge Changfeng continued with a heavy heart. Clan head, what do you think about a beggar being harassed on the street? Luo Yuhai gave him a confused look, but seeing their cryptic smiles, he said, a beggar is being harassed due to his status. If he rises above his station, he will be free of any harassment. Yes, using one's assets in exchange for even bigger assets and gaining much more, one step at a time. This is what we 3 have been doing these years. Zhuge Changfeng sighed, his eyes filled with sadness. From harassed beggars, we became merchants. From oppressed merchants, we entered service. But our every progress was met with more suppression, never able to escape it our entire lives. This is who we are. But Steward Zhua is different from us in this tiny yet crucial aspect. The Luo clan had defeated in 10 years all the other houses and wielded all the power in Tianyu. This is something we could never achieve. Luo Yunhai's heart shook. How is it different? Clan head, how can a beggar never be harassed in his life? Zhuge Changfeng smiled as he asked instead of replying. Luo Yuhai frowned in confusion. Zhuge Changfeng saw him unresponsive and shouted. Clan head, to never be harassed again, one must stand above everyone else. The beggar must become emperor to feel truly safe. How is that possible? Luo Yuhai was baffled. Zhuge Changfeng sighed. Yes, it's quite the fairy tale, isn't it? But isn't our Luo alliance today also a fairy tale to the old Luo clan? Luo Yuhai pondered and then turned solemn. This is where we are different from Steward Zhua. His drive is unlike any other. Ling Wuchang patted Luo Yunhai's shoulder. We never actually accepted when he defeated us back then, since we are no less shrewd than he is. The three sages of Tianyu aren't just for show. Only now do we understand that our vision isn't as broad as his. Our horizon is narrow, and our drive weaker. The invincible sword is the core of the Sword Star Empire. We knew this, but he's too strong, deterring us from even considering him. The price to pay is just too great, with little chance to succeed. Steward had set his eyes on him from the start, burning bridges and abandoning the lands so that he could face the core issue. He has such drive none of us is capable of. Having now been made aware of his plan, we realize the truth. A land has around 30 million men, with half meaning 15. Against such a force, Bailey Jingwei had no chance of providing timely assistance no matter how desperate. While the 2 lands and a half of soldiers will make close to 100 million. Invincible Sword is tough, so much so he can handle a land by himself. But what can even he do against the likes of such a combined attack? Using all those countless lives against just one? Who would have the nerve to do this? Not even we considered this course before hearing the order. This is also why the Sword Star Empire will eventually collapse. Steward's order is a master stroke of the ages. I bet that not even Bailey Jingwei would dream that Steward would take this action. Luo Yunhai's brow shook, then he looked at the starry sky with a smile. Yes, you stewards are right. I can still remember the day the clan was made of 4 people, staying in the Veiled Dragon Pavilion, and brothers were coming out to proclaim that the Luo clan will stand at the top. None of us believed him, but now, ha ha ha, Brother Zhua is a man who only saw the very peak. There's nothing he wouldn't dare or do. That is my Brother Zhua. Luo clan's first steward is our patron saint. The trio nodded in agreement. Brother Zhua had us stop to protect us. Leng Wuchang bowed. It's way easier to fight Bailey Jingwei and Dragon-Cleaving Sword King's army than going to war with a man like the Invincible Sword. Yes, you guys sure got the easiest job this time. The soldier spoke with reverie. It's good to have someone left behind in court. Others, I bet, must be sinking in despair from being stuck with hunting Invincible Sword. Right on cue, howls of grief tore at the sky and endless tears soaked the earth. Chapter 1054 Outrage. Chapter 1054 Outrage. Proofreader Papatonks. What's going on? Why the sudden commotion in the enemy camp? The 3 land forces wailed and grieved like their own funeral, hearing they were sent to die fighting that monster Invincible Sword. The thick air of despair and anguish leaked all the way to the central area's army camp. Bailey Jingwei was still smug in his belief that he broke Shuafan's empty city tactic and took the 3 lands without losses. That guy must be wallowing in his defeat right about now, being rebuked by all the other leaders. But then the sudden widespread grief had him flinch. A scout burst into the tent. Prime Minister, for some reason there is a sharp increase in forces on the northern lands side. Their howls alone travel for thousands of miles. From what I've seen, they have now tripled their numbers. Tripled? How? Where did northern lands get so many people? Bailey Jingwei was confused, but then he exclaimed with a mocking smile. Oh, since the empty city tactic fizzled out, the lands had no choice but to converge here. Humph, they're nothing but deserters with lower morale. Of course they'll cry. Tell the army to raise defenses for when the cornered dog makes an assault. Yes, sir. The man left. Bailey Jingwei looked mighty pleased, humming a tune. He even started dancing whoosh. Dan Qingshan entered the tent and paused, taken aback. Prime Minister, what got you so excited about? Ha ha ha, Dragon-Cleaving Sword King, you're just in time to hear the good news. The war against the 4 lands will be done in 3 months. I'll be sure to put on a good word to the Patriarch when merit is given back in court. Dragon-Cleaving Sword King has always wanted to rule over your paradise? After the unification, that area will be set aside for you to oversee. Oh, I am most thankful, Prime Minister, ha ha ha. Dan Qingshan nodded, but his heart sank. He made sure to hide his worries, though, behind his smile. Prime Minister, weren't you saying it's going to take a year? Why so soon all of a sudden? Bailey Jingwei leaned back with immense pride. We have to thank my old opponent for that, Zhuofan's empty city tactic, ha ha ha. His tactic got exposed and ended up delivering the 3 lands to us. Now northern lands' borders have increased activity, mostly from the other lands' forces teleporting in. In other words, the other lands are ripe for the taking. We will crush their teleportation arrays in a week and the lands are as good as ours. Then, in half a month, the 3 armies will be called here and defeat northern lands together. That will give him no room to escape. But with 4 lands united, the northern lands' border will be even stronger. It won't be easy taking it down. Dan Qingshan sat at the table and sipped from his teacup, not looking pleased at all, knowing his thoughts. Bailey Jingwei smirked. Dragon Cleaving Sword King, have you forgotten how Patriarch's team is out there and are waiting for the right time to strike? With both of us working together, northern lands will be weakened and wide open for attack. Now must be the 9th day. Patriarch will act on the 10th. With attacks coming from within and outside, we'll just see how long they'll last, humph. Dan Qingshan's brow shook at Bailey Jingwei's celebrating tone. He lowered his head and just sipped tea. In his own thoughts, Bailey Jingwei glanced over with a scoff. The worst sinner in the lands, hated by millions, Zhuofan, Gu Yifan. I will be sure to raise his monument in every land to be remembered by, he. Though I've yet to settle on the right name. Report. The sudden shout broke his bliss as the soldier rushed to bow and stammer. A jade slip arrived from the enemy's side. Please take a look, Prime Minister. Bailey Jingwei gave it a look and chuckled. He doesn't even care if he's found out, sending jade slips all the time. But with the situation crystal clear, it won't matter even if they're discovered. Prime Minister. The soldier grimaced. The jade slip is a secret message and under a seal. We can't open it. Bailey Jingwei shook and froze in a frown. He sent a secret message to me? Is it that crucial? The situation is obvious. The Sea-Bright Sex barrier is broken, so what could be so important? Does that guy have a way to reverse things even in this clear-cut scenario? Give it to me. Bailey Jingwei gestured for the guard and he presented it Dan Qingshan's side. Is it the spy in northern lands again? Yes, Patriarch would have a hard time breaking the Sea-Bright sect, so I took precautions. While he hasn't gotten the heaven-sealing sword, he proved his use by sending intel on Gu Yifan being the Grand Marshal of the 4 lands. Bailey Jingwei knew Dan Qingshan would have figured it out in the end, so he didn't deny it. He made a sign and the jade slip was unsealed for him to read. He was better off not knowing anything, for the information shocked him to the core. His hand relaxed and the jade slip broke as it hit the floor. Dan Qingshan paused, seeing the great Prime Minister Bailey lose his cool. Prime Minister, are you all right? Zhuofan, you're brutal! Bailey Jingwei took a good while to come to, but now his face was twisted, his nails digging into his palms till he bled. Bailey Jingwei looked savage. I knew he shouldn't be left alive. He's terrifying in the command of the 4 lands. He actually found out my greatest worry and still dares to use it. Ruthless, cruel, shrewd. Bailey Jingwei couldn't even finish from sheer outrage. He then barked. Guard! Thump. A soldier rushed inside and on his knee. Prime Minister, orders? Attack! Right now! Bailey Jingwei shrieked. Tell all men to attack the northern lands border and punch through them. Don't give me that. Prime Minister, but didn't you just order us to raise defenses? The men are doing it as we speak. Pa! Bailey Jingwei slapped him hard and cussed. When the hell did I give you such an order? I want you to charge, now. Send every last man to the northern lands border and get me an opening. Yes. The soldiers shook in fear, then left in haste. Bailey Jingwei paced around the tent in great distress, like he was a different person from before. He has lost his calm and shook all over like a scared mouse. Today's the 9th day, and that means Patriarch will attack tomorrow. His appearance will paint 100 million targets on him. If something happens to the Patriarch Zhuofan, you son of a she-dog, damn you to hell. Tell the other 3 armies to get to northern lands right now. Bailey Jingwei roared at the first soldier. The man bobbed his head and went right to it, away from the Prime Minister's wrath. Bailey Jingwei was still uneasy, unable to sit on his chair as he was sweating bullets. The armies have invaded the lands for 3 days and they'll need that much time to return to the borders. Then they'll need 3 more days to use the teleportation arrays. 6 damn days! Will Patriarch be able to last the endless flood of men chipping at him for so long? Shuafan, God damn you for making me do this! Bailey Jingwei roared like a man and Dan Qingshan was startled, then he smirked. Prime Minister, did something happen? Nothing. Bailey Jingwei shook then gave him a look. He gnashed his teeth as he tried swallowing the fury. The foreign sword kings must never know Shuafan is after the Patriarch, or they'll only make things worse. Shuafan is a true mastermind with his devious plans. He now has me trapped without a single hope to fight back. At least I left a spy there to inform me, or else. Bailey Jingwei squinted, feeling a chill crawl up his spine. He's an abomination. Chapter 1055 Besieged. Chapter 1055 Besieged. Proofreader Papatonks. Report! Bailey Jingwei flinched at this ominous word and his heart almost stopped. A soldier rushed inside to present a jade slip. What now? Bailey Jingwei's face twitched and felt like crying. He was scared things could actually get worse than they already were. The soldier sweated, unaware of his Prime Minister's worry. Prime Minister, the imperial capital is in urgent need of rescue. His Majesty makes an earnest request of military aid. Of the 3,820 cities, 565 have fallen. To make matters worse, the revolution is only gaining more ground. The city lords can't stop the flood. It's that desperate? Bailey Jingwei was shaken up. Does that mean the disturbance wasn't on a small scale, but a full-blown riot? But who has such power in the central area? Wait, is it Serene Shores Trading? Bailey Jingwei's face twitched and turned savage with fury. Damn those merchants! After purging their base, the sudden vanishing of all their branches led me to believe they scattered like flies, when they were waiting for me to show my back. Humph, soldier, tell Wine Sword Immortal to lead his men back to quell the riots. Prime Minister, Wine Sword Immortal is deep in northern lands and requires 3 days at the least to return. Also, Dan Qingshan picked up on the clues and said, You just ordered them to teleport to northern lands, but the imperial capital doesn't have a moment to spare. Let's split our forces and settle the fires. Guard, stop the charge. We're going back to save the empire. Dan Qingshan had yet to finish before Bailey Jingwei cut him off. Wait. We can't leave, just charge. You must charge. Prime Minister, a rebellion is upon us. We must provide aid and quell it before it endangers the empire. Dan Qingshan tested. Even if we split our forces, with our defenses, we're sure to last a few weeks. It'll be enough for us to quell the revolution and make it back. Not to mention the other 3 armies are coming soon, in just 6 days. We will hold out. You might hold out, but the Patriarch can't keep a hold of his head. We're in a race for time where every second counts, where every moment might mean the death of the Patriarch and the collapse of the Empire. All that matters is for Patriarch to survive to keep hope alive. Everything can be regained even if lost in this moment. The Empire may go in flames for all I care, but the Patriarch must still stand. Shuafan, you rotten son of AB-. Bailey Jingwei crunched his teeth, shaking all over. Was all of it part of his plan? All of it is to stall me? That was no empty city tactic, but bait to lure the 3 armies away from the teleportation arrays and not provide timely rescue, earning him 6 days of peace. Then there's the Empire's insurrection, besieging me on all fronts. In 6 days I can pacify the Empire but not save Patriarch, which would still lead to its fall. And if I choose to save Patriarch, I won't break their lines in a mere 6 days, all while the fires rage in the imperial capital. Or maybe the revolution will cut off our reinforcements, hindering us further to delay the rescue. Either way, the game is lost before it starts. He crushed me. Bailey Jingwei went limp, falling in his chair with dead eyes. Prime Minister, what's wrong? Dan Qingshan held him. Bailey Jingwei looked bleak and in despair. He played me from the very beginning. The board is out of my control. I never dreamed my greatest advantage had become my downfall at that guy's devious planning. Zhuo Fan. Bailey Jingwei wailed, filled with denial and regret. Achoo! Zhuo Fan sniffed in Si Bright Sec's main hall and then shivered. Ling Yutian smiled. Sir Zhuo, did you catch a cold perhaps? Since when does a cultivator catch a cold? Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes. My ears are burning. That Bailey Jingwei punk must be cursing me. Humph. The others chuckled, with Murong Lai praising. Only Sir Zhuo could call a genius like Bailey Jingwei a punk. Sir Zhuo's plan is ingenious and praiseworthy. Reports are coming from the front lines saying Bailey Jingwei flipped out, ordering to storm our defenses. He must have known about Sir Zhuo's plan and gone insane. Ha ha ha, he's reacting already? Zhuo Fan paused, then nodded with a smile. I see. What? I see there's a spy among you. Zhuo Fan gave them a deep look. They all cried out. How can Sir say that? Bailey Jingwei fell for my first 2 tricks and still followed my expectation until my 3rd one. But how did he find out about it so fast? And I also made sure to light the Empire on fire. He should split his men to save it. Even if he guessed my intentions, still having doubts, he'd never ignore the Empire in peril. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed as he looked over the oldies. The answer couldn't be simpler. He didn't guess my plan but was certain of it. How? Only if someone told him. That's why he flipped out and started a mad charge. The men gasped. We have a traitor? Who? Everyone looked at each other in suspicion. Zhuo Fan smiled and waved without worry. Not that it matters. Covert operations are about mind games, about laying traps and running the minute it's exposed, unlike an overt plan. It won't affect the plan if others realize it. I had his 3 armies stalled in the 3 lands, losing precious time to come back. He is also stuck even with charging the northern lands, not having the manpower to break through the lines anytime soon. It is this time that will earn us victory. Sir Zhuo, did you foresee a traitor among us? Ling Yutian asked Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan nodded. Si Bright Sec's barrier is strong, something I'm sure Bailey Jingwei knew beforehand since he planned to attack it at some point. Spies are a must in wars, which is why I foresaw a spy among us. That's why I didn't tell you, nor explain my orders in detail. Now it won't make a difference, because the enemy is stuck in my trap, ha ha ha. Sir Zhuo is godlike. Everyone looked in awe at Zhuo Fan, in awe of his skills. Only Murong Shui looked askance with a cold face. Though she might abhor Zhuo Fan, she had to give the man credit for his methods. He is the vilest devil, a demon archon with unlimited appetite for destruction and blood. Once the war is over, he must be removed for good. What man would throw away 100 million lives for victory? Zhuo Fan noticed it was getting dark and grinned. Friends, the time limit to deal with Invincible Sword is 6 days. Any later and Bailey Jingwei would have all the army assembled and anything can happen. We have to kill Invincible Sword within this period. The men grew solemn and nodded. Shangguan Feixiong smiled, holding out his dear sword. Zhuo Fan, you haven't unsealed it last time since you were in jail and used it as leverage. Now you are our Grand Marshal, one of us. I still want to fight Invincible Sword and can't do it without Soaring Sword. Of course. Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed in 2 golden halos at the Scarlet Sword. Divine Eye of the Void's 2nd stage, Void Annihilation. Bam! The sword shuddered, then shone a bright red as it flew around. Having regained its freedom, the people stared agape. That's it? The Soaring Sword is unsealed just like that? Doesn't that make us all fools for toiling over it for a year? They all looked at Zhuo Fan with shock and awe. Zhuo Fan is a miracle worker, and not just a mastermind. Shangguan Feixiong beamed as he looked at the divine sword. He made a sign and the sword fell in his grip. Thank you so much for this immense help. It's fine, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan had no shame in his casual attitude. But then Shangguan Feixiong turned heavy. The hell would I do thanking you? That was your duty to begin with. This was part of our first deal. Zhuo Fan grinned. Ling Yutian smiled, stepping between the two and saying, Shangguan clan head, you're wrong there. He only said about giving you the sword and not in what condition. Now Sergua unsealed it, so how can you say that? Yeah, you. Fine, now your soaring sword is back to you, so go on. Ling Yutian urged him to the side before beaming at Shuafan. Sergua, the soaring sword is settled, now it's about ha ha ha. Ha ha ha, when will your guard be returning with it? Oh, you'll meet her when you see Bailey Yutian. What? They gasped. Shuafan had an evil grin. Hasn't she already told you who she is? Since she's Frigid Rain Sword King, then she'll take Heaven's Sealing Sword to Bailey Yutian. Since you'll be meeting that old man soon, you can ask him for it. What? Their hearts sank at Shuafan's devastating news. Is Sergua working with Bailey Yutian? Chapter 1056, Sending Off. Chapter 1056, Sending Off. Proofreader Papatonks. Everyone looked at Shuafan as if he grew a second head. Murong Shue was the one most affected, but then she lashed out. See that? I knew he's not dependable, yet you all insisted on trusting him. He used the Heaven Sealing Sword to bait you all this time, only to tell us now that the Divine Sword is with Invincible Sword. He was playing us all along. Shuafan smirked. The men frowned and hesitated, with Ling Yutian gathering the courage only to be supplicant. Sergua, you promised us that you'll return the Heaven Sealing Sword, so why? Yes, I did, and I am. Go see Invincible Sword and ask him to give it back. Ling Yutian was on the verge of tears. Isn't that twisting words, Sergua? The old monster came from it specifically, and now that he has it, you think he'll be a fool to just give it back? Hey, you're not that far off the mark there, hee hee. Shuafan cocked an eyebrow, complimenting his evil smile. The others were bemused. Shuafan gestured for Ling Yutian to come on over to lend his ear. Didn't you just say he came for Heaven's Sealing Sword? When you see him, tell him that it was not him who took it. Shuafan acted like he shared his deepest secrets, showing a confident smile. Ling Yutian frowned in doubt. That's it. You don't believe me? Has my plan ever failed? Shuafan gave an insidious smile, acting like he was counting his greatest hits. When Bailey Yu couldn't steal your sword and pass the barrier, it was my idea that had her succeed. When Bailey Jingwei attacked all lands, you were all being hysterical in despair, yet it was I who broke the invasions. Now, the hunt for Bailey Yutian, the same thing that is now driving Bailey Jingwei insane, is my idea too, no? Has any of them failed? You still doubt me after all this? Ling Yutian pondered and relented a nod. Yes, Sergua has shown great success in every aspect, a man of integrity and infallible genius. I'm fortunate you're on our side, or else our end would have come far quicker. Then, when we'll look for Invincible Sword tomorrow, we'll just do as Sergua said. I just hope it'll prove as effective as all plans. Of course it will work, now go. With the Heaven Sealing Sword back, your 3 swords will make light work of him. Shuafan shooed him away, shouting at the rest. The plan can't be clearer now, so just go grasp victory. If anything happens, I'll be sure to amend the plan from the back. The others nodded and bowed before leaving. Then we shall take our leave. We are grateful for Sirs overseeing the battlefield. Shuafan found himself in the spacious hall with his dear Chu Qingqing, Qiao and Murong Shue. What are you still doing here? Shuafan gave her an odd look. For now all is quiet. With them going away, shouldn't you do the same? I'm watching you. Watching? Yes. Murong Shue stared with an icy gaze. You're one sick man, backstabbing and traitorous. One moment you're with Invincible Sword, the next you're giving advice to us. Nothing about you is trustworthy. I am never going to leave you out of my sight, stopping you from doing something that will plunge the world into hell. Murong Shue sat in a chair, unmoving. But her eyes bore into Shuafan every second, making her presence most off-putting. Don't you try anything, I got my eye on you. Man, she's a pain. Shuafan smirked and walked to Chu Qingqing's side. Miss Murong is welcome to stay, I won't tell you to go. But me and my wife have been so long apart that, with these days detained over some trifles, that only makes me anticipate our time together. So us two might be doing something inappropriate for public display. Miss Murong is, of course, Welcome to stay and gain much knowledge on the subject. I sure don't mind. Maybe Miss will also like some hands-on teaching, ha ha ha. Why you? Murong Shui blushed hard and grew irate. Her pretty eyes stared daggers at him, unable to come up with any retort. She ended up flicking her hand and leaving. Humph, all men are rotten to the core. Be careful not to include your brother as well. But seriously now, you don't want to gain early practice? It's all gonna pay up later. Drop dead! Zhuofan knew no shame, his voice traveling outside the hall and making her yell even harder. Zhuofan chuckled, then he turned to the dull-eyed Chu Qingqing with grief. Qiao, call Wu Qingqiu, Shui Ruohua and the others. Don't let anyone know. Yes, father! Qiao replied seriously and left. Just a stone's throw away from the main hall, Murong Shui still hadn't given up on watching him. She then noticed Qiao leaving and her heart sank, actually believing Zhuofan's words. Pervert, your wife is like that and you want humph, shameless bastard! Murong Shui huffed and left as well inside the main hall. Zhuofan and Chu Qingqing were now alone looking at her gentle face and her white hair. Heartbroken like he was with Ninger, Zhuofan's eyes grew hazy, taking out a comb and started running it through her long silky locks. Qingqing, we may be married, but I've never been completely honest with you. Zhuofan teared up. I am not from here. In fact, I shouldn't even be before you. I am a demonic emperor, bearing heavy sins, bringing chaos and destruction wherever I go. Maybe the heavens wish for this. Ninger suffered and now you. I knew pain would be coming and wanted to distance myself from you, but why did you still have to take the same path I treaded? Ha, no, you have far deeper feelings for me than I had for Ninger back then. I at least did not lose my mind. I just can't fathom what these bloody executioner hands did to deserve your love. The comb trembled in his hand, his voice heavy. I have lived 2 lives, yet never had anyone wishing to stay with me with all their heart. First was Ninger, but she no longer remembers me. I felt my heart torn in 2, but I was glad for her that she would no longer suffer any longer. The second is you. You forgot me as well, but I feel such a deep pain in my heart. Qingqing, I do wish for you to forget me, but I hope you'd always recall me as well. Qingqing, tomorrow I'm going to the North Sea and might die. I hope that you'll remember me before I go. I know that this might cause you pain once more, but I'm selfish and really hope that I am not just a passing phase in your heart. I do. The comb stopped and he kneeled before her, resting his head on her knees, choking with emotion and shaking all over. Whoosh! A breeze ran through the white hair as Chu Qingqing's eyes teared up as well. Her fair hands trembled and lowered her head, looking at the shaking figure she hadn't seen for 5 years with a gentle gaze. One hand reached and touched Zhuofan's head. Brother Zhua! Chu Qingqing shuddered at the sudden interruption and her hand returned to its position, the light in her eyes fading once more. Zhuofan got up and strained himself to appear casual as Wu Qingqiu, Yi Lin, Shui Ruohua and everyone arrived in the main hall. Behind them was Qiao. Wu Qingqiu cupped his hands. Brother Zhua is now the Grand Marshal of our lands. We wanted to see you for days but couldn't. What could have had the Grand Marshal summon us? Ha, Brother Wu, what's this about Grand Marshal? We're all friends here. I only have a small request. Brother Wu, don't forget you lost our bet in the dungeon. You owe me a favor. Ha, so that's what it is. Brother Zhua wants to cash in so soon? Wu Qingqiu laughed. Sure, Brother Zhua, I'll be sure to do all I can to fulfill a brother's request. The others nodded as well with shining eyes, helping Chu Qingqing stand. He went to Shui Ruohua and Zhuofan said earnestly, Northern lands is fraught with danger. Help me take Qingqing back to Western lands. The 3 attacking armies should now be in full retreat so you can use the teleportation array to return to Double Dragon Manor. It's the safest choice. Chapter 1057, 10th Day. Chapter 1057, 10th Day. Proofreader Papatonks. We shall follow Brother Zhua's order to the letter. Wu Qingqiu replied on the spot. The question now is when? Immediately. Even if we're in the Seed Bright sect, war will be coming soon, and it will no longer be safe. I hope to get Qingqing out as soon as possible. Sure, we will go right now. Wu Qingqiu and the others bowed. Brother Zhua, take care. Take care. Zhua Fan cupped his hand as they took Chu Qingqing away. But she shot her hand to clutch Zhua Fan's. Her grip strong. Zhua Fan's eyes shook with hope. Qingqing, you're awake, ugh. But those empty eyes reflected his downcast face. Zhua Fan, it's just Qingqing's instinct. She'll need more time for her mind to recover. Shui Rohua sighed and spoke morosely. She then took Chu Qingqing's hand to leave, but the grip on Zhua Fan's hand only tightened, her fingers digging into his skin and drawing blood. Zhua Fan didn't even register the pain, his gaze always on Chu Qingqing as he spoke in a heavy tone. Qingqing, I'm doing this to keep you safe. I will come back to you, I promise. Chu Qingqing shook, but it was clear Zhua Fan's promise eased her heart as her grip eased. Shui Rohua quickly took her hand back. The others finally relaxed and bowed to Zhua Fan once more before leaving with Chu Qingqing. Yilin had vowed again and again that he would definitely make sure sister-in-law would be safe and sound. Zhua Fan smiled, feeling relieved to leave her in their care, having complete trust in them for already looking after Chu Qingqing for the past 5 years. Zhua Fan gazed at the sky and noticed dawn was just around the corner. Zhua Fan said, Everything's ready. Xiaoer, let's go as well. Where? North Sea. Zhua Fan's gaze was set. Xiaoer asked. Father, aren't you leading the Four-Land Alliance? What are they going to do in case of an incident? Let those clowns deal with it. Zhua Fan's eyes shone and smirked. When two fight, the third party wins in this stalemate. Central area and the Four Lands are of similar strength. They would kill until they dye the skies red and cover the earth in corpses, with either side coming on top. When we return from the North Sea, we will find the world has changed overnight. Our power will also expand in these circumstances, patching up our way to the top once more, ha ha ha. Zhua Fan flew towards the North Sea shore, with Xiaoer smiling behind him in the glorious light of a new day's dawn. The father and daughter began their journey. What of the sea bright sex barrier, one might ask? Nothing of it, since Zhua Fan's apocalyptic thunder flame could poke a hole in it. Especially since the heaven-sealing sword was conveniently removed, making the barrier so much weaker. It was simply a joke for a man of his caliber while they were out hiking, the same joke, it would seem, applied to one other person, far better than to Zhua Fan Rumble. Thunder cracked the sky as purple lightning exploded in 1,000 branches. The barrier of sea bright sect cracked like eggshells, bringing fresh sea air into the sect. Or maybe doomed. The purple lightning formed. Thousands of swords waved up above, looming dangerously over the sect. Even Genesis stage experts felt numb under this sea of purple. Their breaths faltered and their immense yuan qi slowed down to a trickle. Mere pressure was enough to bring the sect to its knees. Such was the power of the purple curtain. The leaders of the Four Lands came out to see what was all the ruckus, to gasp in fear and despair. Invincible sword is here! Invincible sword now? Murong Shui glanced at the purple attack hanging above him and gasped. Is this the effect of Invincible Sword's attacks? It's so much more terrifying than my brother's. How is he still human? Murong Lai gripped the golden burning longsword, but his brow was soaked. Invincible Sword is no human, or he wouldn't be anything great, humph. The others gave a weak nod, with some even faltering back. Such was the might of Invincible Sword, dreading his coming before even meeting him. Not even the highest power in other lands could fight the fear boom. Explosions rang everywhere, followed by savage winds and wails of demise throughout the sea bright sect. Blood sprayed so high it reached the heavens, mixing with the purple lightning and turning the world of mortals into a hell's cape. It sapped any bit of courage one might have. The winds then made sure to bring the stench of blood to every corner of the sect, completing the carnage. Sect leader, Invincible Sword has come with 5 sword kings and 10 disciples. He broke the barrier and is slaughtering us. Whoosh. A bloody elder arrived in a panic, howling with grief. We've already lost tens of thousands of experts. Please save us, sect leader. Ling Yutian was distressed as well, turning to the others. Lingtian, Murong clan head, exalted double dragons and everyone else, We set ourselves on killing the old monster with numbers, and now he came to us himself. We'll do as Serjwa planned. We'll go meet him and stall for 2.5 lands worth of men to come from the front lines so we can finish this. Yes. The other cupped their hands, though hesitation dominated. Still, talking was one thing, while putting it into action was another. Ling Yuntian didn't look too confident in this joint slaughter, turning to Murong Shui. Miss Murong. Sect Leader Ling, I'll do everything in my power, whatever it may be. Then go look for Serjwa and ask him what to do now that the invincible sword is here. Go ask him? Murong Shui's face fell. Murong Lai glared at her and snapped. Shui, there's no time to argue. We need Serjwa's cunning tactics. We go ourselves, but we need to go join the fight. Stop being a child and do this for the sake of everyone else. Murong Shui huffed and grumbled, but she knew her priorities and flew for the main hall. As for the leaders, they shot in frantic haste at the devastation with a grave expression. Whoosh. Murong Lai, Ouyang Lingtian and the rest soon met with 16 people walking without a care. In front were the 5 sword kings, looking icy as they doled out death, uncaring and unfeeling. Be it a building, barrier, or some venerable coming to stop them, they all replied the same way, flicking their hand and sending thunderous explosions that tore everything to pieces, all while their casual trek through the enemy base went undisturbed. Like they were a bulldozer. Behind them was a tall elderly, imposing and confident, looking down on the world with none wanting to get near him. He acted like he was on top of the world. The only option was join him or perish. Even the mighty sword kings were giving him ample respect and did his bidding. It was none other than the best of the best, the invincible sword. Behind him further were 10 juniors, who came out on a sightseeing trip to see the world, keeping their heads low behind the old man and doing nothing else. Not like they needed to, since the path was being cleared with terrifying efficiency. Chapter 1058 One Sword vs. 3. Chapter 1058 One Sword vs. 3. Proofreader Papatonks. Gulp. Murong Lai swallowed hard as he and the rest felt their spine tingle. Everyone, there's only 16 of them, with 10 being kids. But why then do I feel like the whole central area is bearing down on me, like an endless army coming for my life? Isn't the invincible sword a one-man army? We wanted to keep this moment for later, but he came knocking on our door. No matter how feeble we feel, we have to do this regardless. Ling Yutian glanced at Ouyang Lingtian, straining to speak. Do, Lingtian, do as Serjwa said and get the heaven-sealing sword back. Why don't you go die instead? Ouyang Lingtian's mouth twitched, his heart sinking, but still shot for the invincible sword. Murong Lai, like a good friend, held the decimating sword as he followed. Brother Ouyang, I'll join you. The others followed in silence. Whoosh. The highest powers of the 4 lands gathered before the invincible sword, blocking his path. The sword kings halted their destructive stroll as well, yet gave these oldies supercilious looks. You have some nerve trying to fight Patriarch, insignificant bugs. Murong Lai knew too well how strong the invincible sword was. What came as a true shock, however, was finding out what invincible sword was holding. Their fear mounting because of it. He was not holding the sundering sword. He was so strong without even the help of a divine sword. So how much of a monster would he be then if he wielded one? It's been ages since I saw this old coot, and I see he's gotten stronger still. Is there no end to his growth? Murong Lai and the others felt like crying. They say he has the power of a land, but now I fear he's almost as strong as 2. Would it still be possible to gang up on him with 2.5 lands of soldiers? Will it kill him? The hopes of everyone reached rock bottom. Invincible sword looked smug as always, at the top of the world. I've been in northern lands for many days now and should have at least paid your sect a visit. Alas, that child, Jingwei, had me wait for a bit longer and prepare you a nice surprise. That's why I waited even though you all lost your heaven-sealing sword, only showing up now. I haven't scared you, have I? Ha ha ha. Bailey Yutian laughed, shaking the skies. The sword kings looked smug at their dreaded looks. The leaders clenched their fists and just sweated. Thank you, invincible sword. Ling Yutian bowed with a forced smile. Your name shocks the world. There's no living being who hasn't heard of your might. My sect is filled with boundless honor with your visit. If it were just to say hello, there was no need to fight your way in. We would have gladly welcomed you. Why must you steal our divine sword and barge in, lowering yourself to such petty actions? I'm afraid it will make others mock the mighty invincible sword, staining your name, ha ha ha. Invincible sword's eyes flashed with anger. Baliyu stepped forward with a glare. Ling Yutian, you dare insult my patriarch? I'll put you in your place here and now. Baliyu exploded with power, and was ready to strike. Ouyang Lingtian rushed to protect Ling Yutian, but Ling Yutian didn't care. This must be Frigid Rain Sword King of the 9 Sword Kings, right? Ha ha ha, nice to meet you. Wasn't your act of stealing our sword 10 days ago under the Invincible Sword's orders? While I have nothing to say if Miss denies it, you are still under the Invincible Sword. Anyone could guess that your actions were sanctioned by the Invincible Sword into playing thief. Baliyu flared, but the Invincible Sword cut her off. You, get back! Baliyu gnashed her teeth, her stare boring into Ling Yutian. Alas, she had to give and fall back. Ling Yutian turned to the Invincible Sword with a bow. Sir runs quite the tight ship. I take my hat off to you, having them cater to your every whim, ha ha ha. Sect leader Ling, and what's that supposed to mean, that I'm a thief? Bailey Yutian squinted. Ling Yutian spoke. You're not? Then isn't the heaven-sealing sword on you right now? While it is, a divine sword always finds its way in the hands of the able while slipping from those unworthy. If you can't keep it, you lose it, just like your precious sect. The Invincible Sword chided. Ling Yutian nodded. True, the weak can hold a divine sword, bound to lose it at some point, and it's only their fault. Although this and that are different. We're all practitioners here, and my sect is willing to accept the loss of the divine sword in open combat with Sir. Yet you use tricks to get it from our sect? Ha ha ha, it can either be that your cunning mind is sublime, or that we're just too naive to fall for it. Be that as it may, Sir's name will take a plunge either way. The ignorant might even say you feared us holding the heaven-sealing sword, resorting to trickery than open combat. Is that all the mighty invincible sword amounts to? Guess you're only as strong as our sect to resort to stealing. Ha ha ha. The invincible sword narrowed his eyes into slits, his face darkening by the second. You're saying I can't take your divine sword in open combat? Humph. The invincible sword huffed. Every time I come for a fight you do nothing but cower behind your shell, or the divine sword would have long been in my hands. What would have been the use of tricks then? Yeah, though we refuse your challenge since we enjoy peace and quiet and not chaos. Nonetheless, stealing our sword is quite a heavy stigma. All right. Invincible Sword cut the air with his hand, and then his palm flashed to reveal an icy blue long sword. Everyone gasped. Invincible Sword then threw it. Ouyang Lingtian moved fast and reached out to have the divine sword fall in his grip once more. You now have the heaven-sealing sword, but only temporarily. With your broken barrier, you can no longer hide. You can't do anything even with the divine sword but keep it warm for when I take it. Then any complaints you have will be moot. Ling Yutian bobbed his head. Of course, the invincible sword is indeed direct and frank, the best in the world, ha ha ha. Ling Yutian laughed, then turned his head. Serge was appealed to ego plan as a success. This coot got the heaven-sealing sword yet gave it back. Now we have 3 divine swords, bolstering our chance of success against this obnoxious monster. The men nodded, the 3 divine swords pointing at the sky. Gold, red and blue flashed from them and shot into the heavens. Boom. The predominating purple lightning was now cut in half, replaced with golden flames, scarlet glows and blue traces from Murong Lai's decimating sword, Shangguan Feixiong's soaring sword and Ouyang Lingtian's heaven-sealing sword. They used their power to wrest control of the heavens from the enemy. The Sword Kings frowned, glaring at them. These rotten bastards actually used mind games to fool Patriarch. How revolting! The invincible sword didn't care, glancing at the half-lost skies with a grin. 3 swords against 1 should be impressive. I'm thrilled that yours truly can enjoy fighting 3 divine swords, ha ha ha. Bailey Yutian flicked his sleeve and a crackling long sword appeared in his hand. Pointing it at the sky exploded as even more purple lightning boomed everywhere. overtaking the previous losses, swallowed by the flood of lightning. The golden flames, red glows and blue streaks couldn't hold on at all. Torn to pieces the skies were dyed purple once more. Murong Lai, Shangguan Feixiong and Ouyang Lingtian shook and coughed blood. Shangguan Feixiong had it worse. Not being on a Sword King's level gave him the worst wound. The other two stared at Invincible Sword with blood dripping from their mouths in dread. Only the Invincible Sword could wrest back dominance from 3 swords. This monster is too damn strong. Chapter 1059, Rescue. Chapter 1059, Rescue. Proofreader Papatonks. Father, are you certain the sea demon they all talk about is Cao? Yes, the way it's been told, there's no way it's just a simple spiritual beast. It must be a sacred beast. But the North Sea is so big. Where do we even start? In the open waters, 1 man and 1 child flew about, looking all over the place for something other than water and more water. Xiao had to express her doubts about this ineffective solution. Zhuofan's eyes shone. Someone once told me that the world has 3 forbidden areas where any mortal will die: Lightning Canyon, Fire Pit, and Ice Mountain. They appear on and off across the world. With no fixed location, these areas are prisons for the sacred beasts. Lightning Canyon holds Qilin, Fire Pit holds Dragon Ancestor, so that leaves Ice Mountain being another prison where a sacred beast is. But because the prisoners wore down at the barriers of the prisons for ages now, the Dragon Ancestor managed to relocate to Ultimate Clarity Sect, so the Cao must have done the same in the North Sea. Just from hearing Ice Mountain, it's easy to tell the entrance has to be extremely cold. With my sharp senses, we're going to find it for sure. Xiao nodded as she flew by his side while looking for anything out of place. Zhuofan honed in on his senses, probing for anything truly cold, far colder than the icy waters of the sea below him rumble. A loud thunderclap exploded behind him. Zhuofan paused and looked back with a gasp. The sky behind them was now a sea of purple, tearing at the sky and bringing doom to those below. It was the Sea Bright Sect, the same place they were at just a while ago. Purple lightning! How come the Invincible Sword came out so soon? Zhuofan's brow shook, then he flew back at once. Xiao was startled. Where are you going, father? I need to see if your mother left safely. If she's stuck there. Zhuofan's eyes shone coldly. We'll have no choice but to face the Invincible Sword ourselves. Zhuofan sped up, his figure gone from here. Father, wait for me! Xiao cried and rushed to catch up. But then she felt a chill all over and looked around bemused. Why is it getting so cold all of a sudden? Rubbing her shoulder to fend off the biting chill, Xiao glanced about but at the calm waters. There was no wind and the sun was still up. She just shook her head with a chuckle. I must be feeling things. But this North Sea sure is cold. Xiao rushed after Zhuofan, leaving as well. Mere moments later, the calm sea shifted, thick mist blew in, just like after a heavy rain, and covered everything in a blink of an eye. A cold like no other swept the surface of the sea, freezing it on the spot. The thousands of lifeforms in its waters were unable to even budge, frozen stiff among the ice. 2 huge light sources suddenly came from deep in the mist, one looking bright, while the other dimmed. What's that noise? Are humans fighting? Far from the thick mist were constant booms echoing about, making the rumbling voice inside cackle. That vile race only knows how to look for more reasons to kill itself off. Their own fellow people slaughter until everything turns red. One moment they asked me for permission to go out to sea and the next they're killing each other. Ha, great, perfect. Since either side can stand the other, let me give you a hand and swallow you both. Hi. A creepy laughter echoed out from the fog as it drifted swiftly, going towards the Sea Bright Sect. The waters turned ice wherever it passed. In an instant with it came the shuddering and haunting voice of a demon. I open my doors to you, welcoming you to become dessert. Hi. The Sea Overlord was coming to shore. In the Sea Bright Sect, the Invincible Sword was showcasing his unstoppable power against the other swordwielders, taking control of the skies and striking terror in the hearts of men. He looked at everyone with nothing but disdain, while the other Bailey experts held their heads high and mocking the enemy. See that? That's the Patriarch's power right there. What are you yokels going to do about it? Ling Yuntian's face fell, his team sighing heavily with worry as they watched in sorrow. The 10 juniors aside, Bailey Yutian was sufficiently monstrous alone that they together couldn't handle him, let alone the other 5 sword kings by his side. Ling Yuntian's heart sank as he looked around. We need Surge was mine now more than ever. What's taking Miss Murong so long to deliver one simple message? Children! Bailey Yutian's eyes shone and shouted. Scatter and have fun, but don't interfere with my enjoyment. Yes! The others cupped their hands and flew off. Into the sect now there was only the invincible sword against the other land's strongest. Murong Lai's eyes twitched. Decimating sword shook in his hand as he spat. Like a true invincible sword, you even had the sword kings leave your side. You want to fight all of us all by yourself? Don't I have what it takes? Bailey Yutian mocked. More than enough. The invincible sword's power is too much for us to disregard. Ling Yutian chuckled. But aren't you scared something might happen and you'd have no one to aid you if you send the sword kings away? The invincible sword's face twitched, and he looked harder at him before laughing in his face. Sect leader Ling, you're still up for jokes? Accident? You think of yourself capable of giving me that? Invincible sword, don't get smart with us. All of us here are as strong as your 9 sword kings, and we have 3 divine swords on top. A sudden incident might do you in. Murong Lai roared and pointed at him. The others were equally resentful, flaring their auras at him. The invincible sword couldn't care less, merely tracing sundering sword's edge, as if in his own world. All bark and no bite. Show me what you're made of and not prattle me to death. As for 9 sword kings, humph, they're nothing but children making a scene. You think you can scare me with that? Ha ha ha, that's rich. People, he was our target to begin with. Now that there's no one helping him, it's the best chance we can get. Charge! With how nothing could ever earn the old man's respect, Ling Yuntian said to the others. Use his conceit to your advantage and make him pay with his life before he gets cautious and makes it harder for us. The others nodded and shouted as they stormed Bailey Yutian with their best skills. Decimating sword, decimating inferno! Whoosh! Murong Lai slashed and the golden sword exploded with flames at Bailey Yutian. The fire formed a sword wave that shot with such heat that it warped the air and even left black cracks. Soaring sword art, soaring skies! Whoosh! Shangguan Feixiong shouted and hacked with the soaring sword. The scarlet sword wave shot with incredible speed for its quarry. Heaven-sealing sword art, world seal! Ouyang Lingtian was not one to be left behind. He waved his sword, devoid of the savage nature like the rest, but hiding an incredible force behind its subtle nature. The attack reached Bailey Yutian's side and was about to engulf him. The invincible sword found himself under attack from all sides, ultimate skill coming from the 3 divine swords. Chapter 1060, Oppressed. Chapter 1060, Oppressed. Proofreader Papatonks. The 3 divine sword wielders each used their own swordsmanship. They had immense power, enough to even crush a sword king, yet proved to be sorely lacking when up against the undefeated invincible sword. The exalted double dragons took this time to strike as well. With a dragon roar, a sword dragon fell from the heavens above and shot for the invincible sword. Eastern Land's 3 venerables, Northern Land's 4 Snow Peak Elders and Southern Land's Sword Guardian Venerables made them move too. The incredible and flashy display was not only amazing but also deadly and apocalyptic. All these powers converged on one old man standing there all by himself. As the string of explosions echoed out, it felt like the world would be torn asunder alongside their joint attack. There were many other great experts who sent out such force that not even the 9 sword kings together would survive. A land's army was bound to find itself crippled and blown to pieces too. But as the ruckus died down, thunder flared and retook dominance as it spread in every direction, blowing away the dust. The invincible sword was still standing straight, holding the sundering sword as he touched the ground, majestic and undaunted. There was not a speck of dust on him. His eyes were cold and sharp, his grin disparaging. Everyone gasped in disbelief. No way! All our attacks did nothing? The old monster is just outrageously strong. Ling Yuntian's face twitched, his heart shuddering. 3 divine swords and every top expert of the 4 lands couldn't even scratch him? How are we even supposed to kill him? Can more than 2 lands' worth of soldiers do nothing to him? Ling Yuntian turned to the others. Bailey Yutian had gone beyond what was humanly possible. Not even the world's strongest joined together could hurt him. Their hearts sank in despair and remorse. Fighting the invincible sword was the greatest mistake. This freak of nature is too damn tough and strong. Clang! A sharp noise pierced their miserable thoughts. They flinched as they saw the purple lightning-streaked divine sword getting off the ground as he moved. The monster is about to attack. They all froze, with sweat trickling down their brow. The invincible sword wore a sneer, his eyes shining as he raised the purple sword high. You attacked first and didn't feel a thing. What an utter disappointment. Letting you have the 3 divine swords is such a waste. Now then, it's my turn. Once I remove your heads from your necks, the divine swords will belong to me and no one will question my methods. Their blood ran cold and flinched back with fear. Whoosh. Bailey Yutian used no skill, just slash like usual, though anything average turned extraordinary when it came to the likes of Bailey Yutian, carrying with it an unstoppable force of nature rumble. The immense power came for the 4 lands experts while the purple lightning above started striking down, following the sword wave and disintegrating anything in its path. Everyone panicked, with Ouyang Lingtian rushing to use the heaven-sealing sword. Heaven-sealing domain, sky sword! Unbreakable world, unbreakable sword! Hum! The heaven-sealing sword shook and unleashed a dim blue glow that surrounded everyone to keep them safe from the incoming attack. Humph! The heaven-sealing sword? Bailey Yutian mocked. The heaven-sealing sword art seals everything. But you, Ouyang Lingtian, are too weak and can't stop the pinnacle of the sundering sword art that I've reached. Boom! The thin blue barrier had no chance against the onslaught, gone upon contact with the thunder sword wave. Ouyang Lingtian coughed blood on the spot and was sent flying. Murong Lai and Shangguan Feixiong rushed to use their own swords, faring no better than Ouyang Lingtian even if working together. They coughed blood and were flung away all the same. The 3 sword wielders didn't stand a chance, which meant the others were far worse off. The deadly sword wave carried berserk lightning as it boomed swiftly towards them, through them, and into the horizon. It pulverized anything in its path, laying waste to half of the Sea Bright sect in that attack alone. As for the land's experts, they didn't get to let a wail out, gone from here and sent thousands of miles away, buried under the rubble, either dead or near it. The invincible sword was just too terrifying. Biting winds swept the dust away, though the invincible sword resumed leaning on his sword, standing there among the desolation and destruction. He eased a long breath, frowning as he began to walk. If I knew how it would turn out, I wouldn't have sent the brats flying. With all of them all over the place, it's going to be annoying finding the divine swords. What a pain! Bang! The invincible sword flew up and searched along the ruins. The 5 sword kings and the princes heard the loud commotion and jumped. Crown Prince Bailey Jingtian looked back at the huge dust kicked up by the attack and gasped. Patriarch is amazing. That slash alone must have finished them all off. Brothers, the Patriarch is done with his fight, but he still wants to have 1 person dead. We will help him by bringing back that guy's head. Right. The others roared in agreement and sped deeper into the Sea Bright sect. The Sword Kings got busy as well, with only Baliyu frowning. Brother Lei, they're going right for him. We find him first and hide him, then we'll talk. Bailey Yulei's eyes flashed. If the Patriarch or anyone else finds him, he's dead. Baliyu's eyes shone with resolve as she shot deeper in the Sea Bright sect. On the easternmost side of Sea Bright sect, Wu Qingqiu's group were frantic in their rush with the dulled Zhu Qingqing, sometimes looking back at the devastation with a chill down their spines. Brother Zhua has to be either a god or a bad omen. He had us take Qingqing out of here since it won't be safe, and it's already gotten dangerous. Even the invincible sword came. It won't matter if we die, but we'll fail to fulfill Brother Zhua's request. Senior Brother Wu, the teleportation array is farther away, but they seem to be closing in fast. Shui Rohua held on to Chu Qingqing as she heard the shouts coming from behind. Yan Mo spoke. Those are from the elders of the Sea Bright sect coming out to stop the enemy. who shouldn't be too outrageous like the Sword King's an invincible sword. Of course it's not them. From that huge explosion and rumbling in the distance, that must be where the invincible sword must be fighting. He won't show up here. We will be safe for now. Wu Qingqiu smiled and eased their worries. We'll arrive in 15 minutes and we'll be safe for good, ha ha ha. The others nodded and smiled, even as they sped up. Protecting Qingqing took priority. A shout then reached them. Wu Qingqiu, where are you guys going? The group stopped, startled. Did they catch up so soon? But the shouts are still far away. How does he know of senior brother Wu's name then? Did he lay an ambush? Wu Qingqiu looked puzzled as well. Why does he know my name? It might be an ambush, but for a simple disciple of the Four Lands? Even if it was set up to kill potential dangers, he wasn't exactly at the top either. At the very least. He had two ahead of him in Western Lands, Zhuo Fan and Yi Lin. Shouldn't he kill them instead? Why does he even know my name? Wu Qingqiu's group was stumped as to what was going on. Chapter 1061, Strongest in the Lands. Chapter 1061, Strongest in the Lands. Proofreader Papatonks. Whoosh! A sudden figure landed before them, speaking in a harsh tone. Where do you think you're going? Looking for the toilet. Wu Qingqiu stiffened as he made an excuse on the spot. Then he noticed who it was and rolled his eyes. Ouyang Changqing, you almost gave me a heart attack. We thought the enemy caught up to us. Ouyang Changqing roared. It would have been far better if they did. Aren't you here to help Northern Lands? Now that we're under attack, suffering heavy losses, what do? You're running away. Humph, turns out Western Lands people are nothing but spineless cowards. Who says we're running? Wu Qingqiu pointed at Chu Qingqing. We were entrusted with the Grand Marshal order to escort Qingqing back to Western Lands. Also, none of us can do anything against the invincible sword. Ouyang Changqing gave Chu Qingqing's dull gaze a long look. I can relate with sending your beloved somewhere safe. Take her, there's a teleportation array up ahead. But could you tell me something first? Where is the Grand Marshal, Sir Zhuo? As a Grand Marshal, he must be in the main hall, overseeing the alliance. The hell he is! I'm just coming from there, and there's no sign of him. Ouyang Changqing mocked. That guy is a coward as well, running the moment the invincible sword came killing. Sister Shui and I have been searching all over, but have found no trace of him. The others were shocked. No way! We just met him before dawn in the main hall. How can he be gone? Who knows, maybe he used the teleportation array first. Ouyang Changqing mocked. So this is the wimpy style of the best disciple in Western Lands. Yi Lin is way better by comparison. Now listen here, elder brother isn't like that. Say one more word and I'll beat you to a pulp. Reality has spoken, yet you still cover for him? Besides, since the best disciple in Western Lands is gone, won't you inherit the title? What's not to like? When I earn something, I do it with my own two hands. I will give my all regardless of victory or defeat. I shall be the best in my own way, and even if only second, I will never use such petty tricks to take the crown. Listening to you talk, O young Master Ouyang, your best disciple in Northern Lands title doesn't seem to carry much weight. What's that supposed to mean? I have earned it in the most righteous. Ouyang Changqing and Yi Lin kept fighting and devolved into grabbing each other. Wu Qingqiu had to rush in to break them up, but what good would that do against the best seeds of their respective lands? The more the two talked back, the more heated became, on the brink of fighting it out for real. Whoosh! Murong Shui suddenly flashed over, looking stumped. What are you all doing? You're squabbling when there's destruction and war going around you. Sister Shui. Ouyang Changqing eased up at once, afraid of giving the girl of his dreams the wrong impression. Sister Shui, you must believe me. I am a civilized man who always avoids brawls. They're just too crude and savage to understand reason. Murong Shui's face twitched and rolled her eyes like she didn't know this pompous fool for who he was. Civil, you? More like a grandmaster in picking fights, who's only lived for so long thanks to his daddy. She promptly ignored him, choosing to talk to Wu Qingqiu. Where's Zhuofan? Do you know where he went? They all shrugged, unable to provide any help. Damn that demon, running away at the worst possible moment. Murong Shui gnashed her teeth and frowned. Ouyang Changqing played it cool. Sister Shui, he's just a rotten coward. I bet he ran off the minute he saw the enemy starting killing their way in. He's unreliable, and I refuse to believe we can't fight without his rotten help. Haven't you always said he's filled with foul schemes and better stay away for everyone's good? He. Yulin flared, but Wu Qingqiu held him back from starting anything. It does ring true. He ran off after causing a scene just like with the Central Area's Serene Shores trading, letting others take the fall. Murong Shui pondered, then nodded. He's better off gone. I refuse to believe that my brother and everyone can't stand up to the Invincible Swords group without his vile methods. Miss Murong, you're just unbearably naive. Your brother and everyone can attack together all they want, but they'll never get to touch a hair on the Patriarch's body. A condescending tone reached them, followed by 10 youths standing proud and confident before them. The leader was a man of sharp features and elegance, wearing a most disparaging smile he could muster, complimenting the disdainful gaze. The hearts of everyone shook and even stung from the immense pressure. Expert. It was the unanimous conclusion they arrived at, no longer looking casual in the face of such danger. Ouyang Changqing as well grew grave, asking Murong Shui, Sister Shui, you know him? Who is he? Central Area's strongest junior, Sword Star Empire's crown prince, Bailey Jingtian. Murong Shui's eyes shook, finding it hard to speak. He might as well be the best junior in the lands. Behind him are 9 princes, each stronger than the last. Bailey Jingtian chuckled, with the other princes joining in. Wu Qingqiu's face fell, his fists clenched and his heart heavy. We're just about to get Qingqing to safety, so how did such a deadly enemy appear? The usually playful and cynical Ouyang Changqing suddenly got excited, his fists trembling with eagerness. The best youth in the lands. Ouyang Changqing's eyes burned hot. Murong Shui, oblivious to his quirk, totally focused on Bailey Jingtian, said, Crown Prince, what a strange coincidence to find you all the way out here. Best in the lands. Ouyang Changqing roared over her and shot straight for Bailey Jingtian, shouting at the top of his lungs. Once I beat you, I shall be the best of the best, ha ha ha. Ouyang Changqing, don't be hasty. You're not his. Sister Shui, watch closely. I will prove to you how worthy I am of you. Murong Shui started, not expecting him to be so impulsive. Ouyang Changqing was deaf to reason, finding his lifelong dream right before his eyes and had all the intention to grasp it. He charged right for Bailey Jingtian and unleashed a cold sword wave at the chest, heaven-sealing sword art, blood seal. Bailey Jingtian hardly cared, smiling. The best in northern lands, son? You're as bold as your father, I see, worthy of Senior Ouyang's teachings. A shame you're not the only inheritor of a great expert, and not fit to touch me. Bam! The loud bang rattled the air, fluttering the clothes of the princes. Bailey Jingtian was still standing in the same spot, just like usual. Ouyang Changqing gasped, staring hard at the finger in front of him facing him that was flashing with purple lightning. Another prince that stood by Crown Prince's side. This is impossible. The best disciple in the Central Area didn't have to step in, but another prince took my all-out attack like nothing? Ouyang Changqing was in complete denial of what happened. Only then Murong Shui's words sank in. The Central Area had 10 princes, with each as strong as the best disciple of any other land. Are you serious? Ouyang Changqing's eyes shook hard as he gnashed his teeth in indignation. Murong Shui and Wu Qingqiu's hearts sank. The strongest clan in the lands is just too terrifying. Even the young have the power to shake the lands. It seems like Bailey now got the best youth in the lands title as well. But where does Zhuofan fit in all this, I wonder? They were all hoping yet watching gravely as Ouyang Changqing, whose power they knew, was stopped before even reaching Bailey Jingtian. Whoosh! Just then, another figure appeared wrapped in golden flames, smashed for Bailey Jingtian's head. Chapter 1062, Vying. Chapter 1062, Vying. Proofreader Papatonks. Following the draconic cry, golden flames exploded as a fierce power pushed down on Bailey Jingtian. The searing heat was so strong it twisted and singed his hair. The Crown Prince's brow shook, looking dead serious at the incoming golden flames. There's actually an expert among these bugs? He was just mildly surprised, still standing there without budging. Bam! The golden figure then found itself halted by a strong hand just an inch from reaching his target. The flames scattered on impact and revealed Yi Lin in his normal form. The one to block him was a buffed man, looking serious despite having blocked the attack. Not just anyone could stop the might of a half-sacred beast with just their body. It was truly incredible that the buffed man even trained his body to this extent. How does the Bailey clan have someone like him, able to withstand little junior brother's strike with his body alone? Wu Qingqiu gasped. The other Western Land's disciples were just as astounded, only Murong Shui frowned. He is the second prince, Bailey Jinggang, forging his body since he was young in the Thunder Pavilion's lightning. He's so tough and strong that he only comes second to Bailey Jingtian. But no disciple in the world is better than him when it comes to raw power. The others turned to Yi Lin, filled with worry for his sake. Yi Lin walked the same path, of a strong body, but now had met his match. They weren't the only ones surprised, and Bailey Jinggang found Yi Lin a true freak. He was supremely confident in his lightning-forged body, having never failed him so far. Yet taking on Yi Lin's, he felt like a hammer blow got smashed into him, feeling it in his bones, a piercing pain like no other came screaming from his body. He only kept a straight face by gnashing his teeth, or he'd be tearing up right about now. He certainly did not think the Five Lands would have another freak in body cultivation. Bailey Jinggang looked up at Yi Lin's savage eyes and wariness. Their nature was antagonistic. He was about to fall back, letting his elder brother deal with it. But Murong Shui happened to announce his mighty body for all to hear. Now this is a problem. Leaving like this will make me look bad. Seeing the caution in their eyes, Bailey Jinggang lamented. He had to suffer through those bitter tears, all for the sake of upholding the world's image of his tough body. So he withstood Yi Lin's sweeping leg, feeling the heat on contact and gnashing his teeth. He even managed to force Yi Lin back. The others were more shocked than ever, believing in Murong Shui's information. Bailey Jinggang is really strong enough to push back little junior brother with strength alone. Bite me. The true strong one is that freak coming out of nowhere. Where did he get all that power? My arm's about to snap. Bailey Jinggang's face twitched, crying on the inside. He finally managed to keep a straight face, through the pain and anger. Then he flung Yi Lin back. Ouyang Changqing's adversary struck as well, sending him off. Ouyang Changqing and Yi Lin looked grave at these 10 men, while the two princes walked back unconcerned and with disdain and hands behind their back. Yi Lin and the rest failed to notice Bailey Jinggang's arms shivering all over, while the other princes' fingers spasmed as ice formed on them. It looked like the princes scored a victory each, but looking closer, they got the short end of the stick. But they had to put a show of calm to preserve their dignity. Bailey Jingtian saw the truth and gasped inside. These bugs actually have some good seeds. Not all of the Four Lands juniors are worthless. Second brother, third brother, stand down. They came for me. Who asked you to interfere? Bailey Jingtian looked after their reputation and had them fall back on purpose. The two bowed, going behind him. These two were true geniuses that only the Crown Prince could face. Bailey Jingtian looked around and stepped before the two adversaries with a smile. I know of Ouyang Lingtian's son, but the other, Western Land's best disciple, Yi Lin. Ouyang Changqing was the one to reply. Bailey Jingtian eyed him and nodded. Oh, I was wondering how this young master could show such skill. So you're the best of your generation in Western Lands. Wrong, I'm just the second. First is my elder brother. Yi Lin scoffed, finding it totally beneath him in taking something that wasn't his to begin with. Bailey Jingtian jerked. For Western Lands to have such a mighty figure as a runner-up, then the first must be godlike, right? Wrong again, he's only a coward, running off at the first sign of your coming. Shut your mouth. Elder brother's valor is beyond your understanding. He'll never run. Try saying that again. Zhuofan is a coward, fleeing with tails between his legs. Ugh. Ouyang Changqing was disdainful and mocked, but then Yi Lin flared in anger. He grabbed the other's neck, while Ouyang Changqing did the same, Not to be any lesser, the two were back to arguing once more. Murong Shui and the others' faces fell. War is in front of us, and these two only know how to squabble. Bailey Jingtian frowned, smiling after a pause. Zhua Fan, are you talking about that Qian Fan merchant, Steward Qian? Right, he's been using that name to get into the Sea Bright sect. Ouyang Changqing replied while focusing on fighting with Yi Lin. Bailey Jingtian snickered. Then may I ask, where is this Sir Zhua? How should I know? Ask them. If there's anything worse than a tough enemy is a dumb ally. Ouyang Changqing was so caught in wrestling Yi Lin he let his mouth run off, grumbling and pointing at Wu Qingqiu and making it even worse. They're defending Zhua's wife and escorting her home. They must know about him. Oh, Zhua Fan's wife, is it? Bailey Jingtian gave the others a look. Their hearts sank and stepped before Chu Qingqing, which only worked to point her out to Bailey Jingtian. Bailey Jingtian smiled and his eyes flashed. Grab her, and we'll get that guy's location, ha ha ha. Bailey Jingtian flicked and the princes charged at Wu Qingqiu's group. Everyone flinched, with Yi Lin panicking. He stopped fighting with Ouyang Changqing and went to help. Ouyang Changqing finally reacted, finally knowing who the enemy was, and went to help, but then someone jumped up to stop them. Bailey Jingtian. He wore a mocking grin, speaking with disdain. Weren't you coming at me before? Well, here I am, attack me together. Beat it. Don't touch my sister-in-law. Yi Lin roared as golden flames turned into scales and charged like a tornado for Bailey Jingtian. Dragon scale flash. If you want Zhua Fan, go find someone else, not his woman. I hate nothing more than bastards who go after women and children. Ouyang Changqing roared, releasing his aura and flicking his fingers, sending icy waves at Bailey Jingtian. Heaven sealing sword art, endless ice seal. Chapter 1063, A Toss-Up. Chapter 1063, A Toss-Up. Proofreader Papatonks. Whoosh. The cold sword wave stilled anything it passed through, as if stopped in time. Whoosh. Golden scales rained down like meteors at Bailey Jingtian, blocking any chance of evading. Yi Lin and Ouyang Changqing worked together for the first time, bringing out the best in each other. Bailey Jingtian hardly noticed the danger, still wearing that disparaging smile. Did you know that the Patriarch's demands are the harshest? Every time we fight, if even one time we failed to take on 100 experts of our level by ourselves, we failed his expectation. In regard to those fights, you two coming at me is hardly enough to make me sweat, ha ha ha. Bailey Jingtian's eyes flashed, feeling the dangerous attacks coming near, and merely waved rumble. With a rumble, lightning snaked from above, thousands of them forming into a sharp sword energy, smashing down on the ground to destroy it. Yi Lin and Ouyang Changqing's attacks were torn to pieces, the overbearing shockwave coming right for them and sending them flying, trailing blood behind them. They paled instantly, finding that Bailey Jingtian's had the same smile once dust settled. He hadn't moved an inch. Their attacks had no effect whatsoever, but instead, they were the ones to suffer. This is terrifying. They were mighty used, so how could they be routed so easily? Was this the power of the best disciple in the lands? The two were overwhelmed at the disparity. Yi Lin was having a difficult time believing that he, a sacred beast inheritor, would lose to another peer again. The remorse in his heart was too much to bear. He ought to know that while he was the dragon ancestor's inheritor, the enemy was the sword sovereign's successor, a mere toss-up between them. As for strength, the master led while the disciple grew on his own abilities. Dragon ancestor was a sacred beast, making it hard to clearly convey his skills to a human. As for a sacred weapon successor, like Ouyang Changqing and Bailey Jingtian, they had understood sword sovereign's essence through the sacred weapons. They were practically direct disciples of another human, making the passing of the techniques flawless. Yi Lin's defeat this time meant not the loss of dragon ancestor to sword sovereign. It only stated that humans and sacred beasts were different. A sacred beast taking a human disciple would not be able to impart all their skills. Moreover, these two's cultivation was also a gulf. Wiping the blood from his mouth, Ouyang Changqing was not about to admit defeat anytime soon, turning to Yi Lin. Brother Yi Lin, I almost forgot to tell you. That punk is in the Genesis stage. We are without a doubt mighty geniuses, but with only soul harmony stage cultivation will only suffer against him. We can't compare with him in the usage of the world's power. Makes sense, but could you please stop with the narcissistic praises? You should have stopped at calling me a genius. Don't include yourself as well. Yilin glared at him. Ouyang Changqing rolled his eyes. Fine, but now what do we do? I do have a plan, but I need Brother Yilin to work with me. Say it. Remember our fight, when the world's energy went berserk? I want to do it again. Seeing Yilin agreeing, Ouyang Changqing turned serious. I'll open a channel, guiding the world's energy into you, and you must bear with it. Even if you go berserk, all that matters is that you gnaw him to the bone. Yilin rolled his eyes. What am I, a dog? Even now? Then again, your idea has some merit. I'll be sure to do my best in controlling that power and unleash it upon him. That settles it. Ouyang Changqing made a sign. Evoking heaven art! A great power suddenly gathered high above, turning into countless cold sword energies. Bailey Jingtian laughed. Ha ha ha, you're only borrowing power that's not even yours. It might work against an equal opponent, but nothing that can stop a true Genesis stage expert's world's power. You'll just have to wait and see. Ouyang Changqing shouted. Brother Yi! I got it. Transformation, Fire Dragon King. Yilin roared and the golden flame exploded around him, warping and surging 500 meters in height. Ouyang Changqing changed signs. Heaven Sealing Art, World Channel. Whoosh! The power far above flew into Yilin. Only this time, it no longer froze him but fueled his fire. With the golden flames roaring higher and brighter, the huge dragon's expression was heavy from pain as well, but he bore through it even as the strain increased. Along with the power, Ouyang Changqing didn't seal Yilin's strength, but drew the world's power into him to bolster his. But with this constant flow of power, the odds were it would go berserk once more and take over his mind. The risk in doing it was very high as well. Brother Yi, how does it feel? Can you take it? No problem. The dragon's eye shone with resolve as he gnashed his fangs. Then strike, do it now! Ouyang Changqing pointed at Bailey Jingtian. Yilin roared in anger and threw himself at the enemy with his claws and fangs ready to tear him apart. For the first time, Ouyang Changqing applauded Yilin. Good, Brother Yi, attack! Ha ha ha, Bailey Jingtian, you're finished. Brother Yi has my heaven sealing art in him. No matter what you do, all your power will be drawn into him, and only make him stronger. Not just your yuan qi but the world's power as well. He's unstoppable now and you will die. Yilin roared as he finished, the flames on his body rising higher and brighter. Oh, so that's how it is. Bailey Jingtian smirked, drawing 2 fingers out and releasing sword intent from their tips. Ouyang Changqing mocked. Bailey Jingtian, are you deaf? I already told you, no matter what you... Boom! Bailey Jingtian flicked his hand and a purple sword energy shot for the fire dragon. A bang echoed out at impact that forced the flames to explode and Yilin to cough blood as he himself flew out of the fire dragon. He was now looking deathly pale and blood flew from his pierced chest. The world's channel died naturally with the destruction of the fire dragon. Bailey Jingtian was still standing there with his smile. Ouyang Changqing gasped. That's impossible! Ouyang Changqing shook his head in disbelief. Dad clearly told me that once the world's energy goes berserk, only the heaven sealing sword can seal it, so how? Bailey Jingtian mocked. Your dad only told you that the heaven sealing sword can do it? It seems he hasn't told you that the heaven sealing sword art means sealing, while the sundering sword art means destruction. The 2 sword arts are in conflict, leaving victory in the hands of the wielder and their strength. By using the heaven sealing sword art, no other power can break it, except the divine sword or the sundering sword art. In other words, you're suicidal if you think you can come at me with it when your mastery is weaker than my mastery of the sundering sword art. Ha ha ha. Ouyang Changqing stood dumbstruck. The sundering sword is the heaven sealing sword's bane? No way. Whoosh. In the middle of his daze, a sword wave ran through his chest. Ouyang Changqing spat blood and fell to the ground. He, the greatest disciple in the northern lands, couldn't even take a hit. Bailey Jingtian is terrifying, a young invincible sword. Chapter 1064, Rush. Chapter 1064, Rush. Proofreader Papatonks. Inyang Ghost Claw! Yenemo released his aura, fighting with the prince just off from the main fight. Yin and Yang flames formed into an eerie claw that raked the air. The prince gazed coldly, waving his finger and shooting a sword wave to crush the claw like it was nothing. The sword wave wasn't finished, slashing Yenmo's chest and making him cough blood as he flew through the air. Yenmo! Wu Qingqiu cried out in worry just as Bailey Jinggang arrived before him and smashed his punch into his clarity domain. You have the time to mind others when fighting me? Bam! Second only to Yilin, the strongest body in the western lands was Wu Qingqiu. However, Bailey Jingtian's unstoppable punch connected to Wu Qingqiu's chest, snapping his ribs. Wu Qingqiu was flung through the air and landed hard, with blood splattering everywhere. They weren't the only ones, with everyone else suffering the same fate against the 9 princes. All these renowned disciples ended up crushed in less than a second. None could get up, too damaged and too paralyzed to move. The 10 princes of Bailey were unstoppable in power and potential. Plop. Murong Shui bled from the mouth with a frown, her knee hitting dirt. Looking around, she found that the 10 princes were dominating the fights, leaving their opponents on the ground. Even Yilin and Ouyang Changqing, the opposing land's strongest, were no different, looking on with despair and dismay. We're finished. Murong Shui's heart sank in defeat, and she shook her head. She should have known that the 10 princes were beyond any of them could hope to match. Bailey Jingtian alone was like a second invincible sword, crushing them all the same, even without the other 9 princes compared to them. Her side were Weevil's. First came defeat, and then came robbing their future and their lives. Murong Shui sighed and closed her eyes. Regardless of that foul man's shrewd planning, it was Bailey Yutian who had taken initiative, and now held the advantage. Now we have lost, and the 4 lands lost as well. The people are going to suffer once more. Brother, these guys were nothing. How do we handle her, though? Bailey Jinggong's cold eye surveyed the area, and as he brought a shivering Chu Qingqing over to Bailey Jingtian gave her a long look. Miss, there's no need to fear us. We won't hurt you. We only want to find your husband. Where could Sergua be at this moment? Chu Qingqing shivered and lowered her head. Bailey Jingtian looked at his brothers with puzzlement. Don't tell me she's been scared out of her mind. He'd seen his fair share of cowards, but never one who turned like this and was a cultivator as well. They were only a bit rough on them, that was all, not yet having resorted to killing. So what's got her so terrified? Brother, this must be her nature, Bailey Jinggang said. When we struck, the girl had just stood there and shivered. She didn't even fight us when we brought her, like a cripple. Why would Juefan, a deceitful and arrogant bastard who even fooled the patriarch, marry a dull wife like her? Bailey Jingtian was stumped. She's dull? Cough. Yilin spat blood and forced his weak body to sit. Don't touch my sister-in-law. She lost her mind and knows nothing. Just take me if you want. What good will that do? Who are you to Juefan anyway, that you could draw him out? Bailey Jingtian mocked and turned to the shivering Chu Qingqing. She may be a dumb wife, but Juefan did have them escort her. That proves he'll come for her. She'll make a good bait. Brothers, take her back. Yes, sir. Bailey Jinggang bowed with the others and grabbed her hands to leave, but then paused. Brother, what about them? They may be insignificant bugs now, but who's to say what the future holds? Especially those 2, having the potential of a sword king. Get rid of them. Bailey Jingyu's face was cold as jumped in the air. He drew 2 fingers and unleashed booms as his power shot from them. The people on the ground closed their eyes. The pride of Western lands was going to fall here of all places, away from home. Ouyang Changqing gnashed his teeth, roaring. I can't accept it. I've yet to marry Sister Shui. I've yet to be the best in the lands. I can't die, I won't. You become the best? Humph! Bailey Jingtian scoffed. At best you're nothing but your old man's successor, the best in the northern lands. The best in the lands shall forever be with our clan, so just wake up already. Oh, sorry, it looks like you won't even be dreaming soon. Take this little pity you got from me and use what precious seconds you have left to dream then, ha ha ha. Ouyang Changqing's lips shook. Changqing, I'm here to save you. I knew sensing the evoking heaven art here that it was you who did it. Ha ha ha, I'm so glad there's still time. A sudden voice shouted. Elder Lu! Ouyang Changqing looked at the old man leading 24 others and showing their mighty Genesis expert aura. Ouyang Changqing was overjoyed. We're saved! 20 elders are here and in Genesis stage. They. Boom. Thunder rattled the air with every explosion of lighting, and the elders were broken apart under the thunder sword waves. They couldn't even scream as they turned to ashes. Bailey Jingtian put down his fingers and mocked. Young Master Ouyang, did you not hear me? I've trained against crowds from a young age, against 100. Aren't you a bit naive thinking 20 Genesis stage bags of bones could save you? Ouyang Changqing felt like crying, roaring. You freak, have you no respect for your elders? Killing kind old men without provocation, is this how you've been raised? What has the Bailey clan even taught you? The patriarch said to cut the tongues of the chatty ones. Bailey Jingtian darkened as he glared at him. Ouyang Changqing closed his mouth, shivering in silence. Murong Shui shook her head with a bitter smile. The pompous fool is wild even in death. Bailey Jingtian drew his fingers again and built power in them as he put on an evil smirk. There's no need to harbor false hope, as the Sea Bright sect has hardly any people left alive. No one will be coming to save you. So just accept my judgment and go to hell, ha ha ha. Bailey Jingtian flicked, and the sword energy came crashing down. It held so much power the stones were eaten away, robbing the breaths of the wounded on the ground. They were all doomed, they knew it, but none could do anything to stop it. Elder brother, farewell. Forgive me for not protecting my sister-in-law. Yilin closed his eyes in remorse. Chuafan, I am ashamed to be your brother. Wu Qingqiu and Yan Mo lowered their heads. There are too many monsters in the world. I am unable to be the best in the lands. Ouyang Changqing felt his heart twist in defiance. Central areas can't be repelled. The people are going to suffer. Murong Shui sighed in the moment of their deaths. All that went through their minds were their regrets. But then, Divine Eye of the Void's 5th stage, Thunder Flame Wall. Chapter 1065, Who are you? Chapter 1065, Who are you? Proofreader Papatonks. Elder brother! Yilin cried out and opened his eyes. The others were also excited as they looked on with hope. Chuafan! Hum. Power shot in front of the sword wave and black thunder flames sprung to life in the form of walls. Bailey Jingtian got startled by the sudden development, but the deadly sundering sword art attack smashed into the flaming walls. Next there was no sound. The sword energy was swallowed up as it made contact with the flaming wall. Losing most of its power, Bailey Jingtian gasped in disbelief. What is going on? How did my sword energy suddenly get so much weaker? The first wall was soon exhausted, and the sword energy now met with the second. This was where it got stalled for longer, not passing through as fast, getting its power cut off even more. Once the second wall was gone, the sword energy lost most of its power. As it arrived at the third and final wall, it faded away along with it in an explosion. Fierce winds blew around, showing a man with long black hair. The Bailey princes gasped, then grew excited. The patriarch wants his head. We just have to take it and make a name for ourselves. The princes were eager to get rewarded, including the crown prince. Elder brother! Yilin cried out, looking grave. Forgive me, I failed you and didn't protect sister-in-law. Xuefan's eyes shook and glanced at him before turning to Chu Qingqing, who Bailey Jinggang was still holding. His eyes grew icy as he stepped forward. Ignoring everyone else, Murong Shui shouted. Devil, what are you doing here? You're only dying with us. You can't fight them. Their leader is the best disciple in the lands, Bailey Jingtian. He's the next invincible sword. Xuefan never paid her any mind, still walking forward. Fine, since you want to die, go ahead. The sooner a devil like you dies, the better off the world will be. Murong Shui huffed after being ignored. Ouyang Changqing said. Sister Shui, Bailey Jingtian is beyond strong like invincible sword, But Fan did stop the berserk Yilin, and he's the best disciple in Western lands. He should have a chance, right? None whatsoever. Murong Shui shook her head and huffed. Senior Ouyang explained clearly that he stopped it because his power clashed with the world's power. I had also once fought him, and he isn't anything strong. He needs to restrain the sundering sword art, or he's only going to die against an expert like Beili Jingtian. Really? Ouyang Changqing's hope hit rock bottom, speaking with misery. And here I thought there's hope for us now that he showed up, but he's only showing off to die. What did I ever do to deserve this? Is there no real savior coming to rescue us? Ouyang Changqing sighed and lamented his untimely demise. But then a weak laugh came. Ha ha ha, young Master Ouyang, no need to fret. Our savior is right here. Who are you beseeching? Ouyang Changqing turned to Wu Qingqiu and Yan Mo, seeing their conviction and confidence. You guys believe he can save us? But Sister Shui. Miss Murong! Wu Qingqiu ignored him and said to the girl. You said you fought him once, but do you know his real strength? Acting sloppy and being serious are two things entirely. Serious? Murong Shui paused to think. It's I who was serious, though. You believe all my strength wasn't enough for him to get serious? Wu Qingqiu shook his head. In the Double Dragon Manners gathering, demon scheming sex disciples talked about how Brother Zhua had always been laid back. He'll never lift a finger to do anything dull. Let me put it another way, did Brother Zhua use his eye when he fought you? His eye? Precisely. Yilin butted in with immense confidence in Fan. Elder brother's 70% of power is in his eyes. Since he hasn't used them on you, he was only playing. He's only serious when he uses them. When I fought with elder brother, his eyes never stopped flashing. In other words, he was only using a third against you and you still looked down on him. Murong Shui gasped as she frowned at Fan. Are his eyes that amazing? He's such a great genius, yet a third of his power is only in his body? Ouyang Changqing turned to Fan in haste, wishing to see the battle for the best disciple in the lands about to unfold. Hovering above and gazing down on the approaching Fan, Beili Jingtian smirked. Qian Fan, Fan, ha ha ha. How should I call you, I wonder? Whatever. Then, Sir Zhua. Beili Jingtian smirked. I remember the first time I saw Sir Zhua and it left a deep impression. Even the Patriarch got fooled by you. Sir's skills are sublime, with none seeing through your bluff. Frigid Rain Sword King then came back and we knew the truth, that you're just at the soul harmony stage in strength yet you act like a Sword King. We truly admire your calm and level-headed attitude as you put on your act. Sir, however, has conned the wrong people. Patriarch is outraged and wants your head, you see. That's why we're here. So, if it's not too much trouble, would you grace us with your head on a platter? Fan shook and stopped, looking up at Beili Jingtian. Who are you? Did we meet? I am Swordstar Empire's Crown Prince, Beili Jingtian. I had a one-sided encounter with Sir along with Patriarch. Sir shouldn't be so quick to forget. Beili Jingtian smirked with pride going down memory lane. Fan closed his eyes. Sorry, I don't bother with bystanders. Sir, what's that supposed to mean? I even introduced myself. Beili Jingtian's face fell. Fan shook his head. Should I remember you just because you stated your name? Thinking back, I often met with outstanding men, leaders of the Five Lands. You just said you were with Beili Yutian. Ha ha ha, sorry, but the only one I recall is your Patriarch who was before me. I didn't even commit the 5 Sword Kings to memory, let alone a pipsqueak like you. What can I do? I have too much important stuff taking my time that all the useless junk gets filtered out. Useless junk? Beili Jingtian's face twitched. Sir Zhua, you're being too condescending. Fan shook his hand, mocking. I have my standards in anything I do. There's 2 kinds of people, the way I see it, enemies and friends. Which, I wonder, are you? Enemy. Fan shook his head. You can't mean friend, for Sir Zhua will be most wrong. Oh no, you needn't worry about which. Fan looked at him with a taunting smile. Since you never registered to me. I told you, I don't waste my time with bystanders. So who are you? Wu Qingqiu's group stifled their laughter. Beili Jingtian shook in rage and hatred, staring daggers at Shuafan. This punk has to die. Chapter 1066. A Punch's Dominance. Chapter 1066. A Punch's Dominance. Proofreader Papatonks. A pretentious fool who only knows how to act and deceive is now unmasked yet still insists on sticking to his role to the end? Ha ha, Serjua, this is utterly vapid. Beili Jingtian's bloodthirst shone in his eyes, smirking and signaling Beili Jinggang. I, however, am in no mood to indulge you. Your head is mine. Brother, the dumb wife has outlived her purpose, handle it. Beili Jinggang gave a sharp nod and laughed. Lightning crackled all over him as he smashed a big fist at Chu Qingqing with an evil grin. Beili Jingtian's sword wave finally grew outrageously strong enough, glancing back at Shuafan. Weren't you so full of yourself in your acting? Your wife is about to have that punch splatter her all over, and what can you do? Nothing. What's there to still be smug, ugh? Just as he was about to release his sword wave, he froze, looking in disbelief at where Shuafan was standing, to find it empty. Where'd he go? Whoosh! Beili Jinggang's face twisted as his mighty fist reached Chu Qingqing, the blowing wind fluttering the frail girl's white hair. Then something red flashed out of nowhere, standing before Chu Qingqing and meeting Beili Jinggang's strike. What was that? Beili Jinggang's eyes shook from shock. The flash came all of a sudden and couldn't make it out, yet cared little about it. The dumb wife must have had some protective spiritual weapon. But he believed that there was nothing that his lightning-forged body couldn't overcome. After all, he was able to punch through even 7th-grade spiritual weapons. He shouted, ramping up the lightning on his fist as he pushed on. Bam! The punch slammed into the red glow, unleashing a mighty shockwave, only to realize this was anything but a defensive spiritual weapon, but a scarlet fist. Beili Jinggang was even more confident. No matter who was coming at him, the number of people able to take on his beyond tough body could be counted on one hand. Yilin was a freak enough, but he was now on the ground in wounds. He didn't believe that there could be another outrageous body cultivator here. It was only logical to think that monsters were a rarity, or how else would others get by with them being so common? Shaking his head and sporting a belligerent grin, Beili Jinggang grew excited as he got into smashing the ignorant interloper. Ha ha ha, fool, you're coming at me with your body? You've got a death wish. I will flatten you. I'm sorry to say, that's going to be you. And while monsters were indeed a rarity upon this god's green earth, he had hit quite the iron plate this time. Coming from the red glow was a cold reply to his infinite confidence. Beili Jinggang blinked as there was a sickening crunch echoing from before him. What followed was a blinding pain that overloaded his heart. He jerked, then sweated all over hard. How is this possible? Beili Jinggang was overwhelmed with a maelstrom of emotions. Who? How can a fist be that strong? Is it still made of flesh and blood? His eyes shook hard, Beili Jinggang looking dumbfounded as the scarlet fist's glow eased to reveal Shuafan's deadly gaze. Get away from my wife, reject! The scarlet fist shook and unleashed a powerful ripple that exploded Beili Jinggang's lightning-covered arm, causing bone, blood and flesh to fly all over. Beili Jinggang's gaze was empty, only now sensing there was nothing where his tough arm should be. Then the dread came, further amplified by Shuafan's ruthless gaze. Never had he thought that there would be someone out there that could break his body forged through such hardships. Is he still human? Beili Jinggang's heart seized. Retreating now was impossible, not when he was supremely confident in his own body. That he gave his all in that attack as his eyes were taken in with fear and shock. Inertia carried the now one-armed Beili Jinggang closer to the red glow and his doom, all by his own making. Boom! Beili Jinggang collided with the fist in a mighty bang and turned to mush. It made a nauseating splatter as his corpse hit the ground, before he could even let out his last cry of pain. As for the punch, its power shot ahead, ripping everything for 100 miles. A huge cloud of dust was kicked even as the ground never stopped shaking. Only now did the bystanders react, looking over at the sudden commotion to find a savage wind blowing where Chu Qingqing and Shuafan stood. As for Beili Jinggang, he was now blood on the ground, fertilizing the grass. The two had a mighty clash of the toughest bodies yet, and the result came faster than expected. With Bailey Jingong's body failing immediately, it happened so fast that none here could react nor see how the gruesome ending of the buffed Bailey Jinggang came to be. "Brother!" the princess cried out in shock, giving Zhuo Fan looks of fear and bewilderment. How on earth did he just get to brother in an instant? And just what kind of power utterly destroyed brother who is only second to the crown prince? But more importantly, how did he kill him without even giving us the time to witness it? That can only mean his power. All princes turned to the still stunned crown prince, who grew dark. He's not a pretender through and through after all. But how did he pass 8 princes? Is his speed that great, dwarfing even mine? Bailey Jingtian balled his fists, his heart tense with caution. Murong Shue's group on the ground were just as stunned. She could hardly believe what she saw. Is this what Yilin meant? Is this the devil's true power? It's unlike anything I fought against back then. Quick, sharp, ruthless, killing the second prince on the spot. She was brought back to when she faced Zhuo Fan in Galefrost Town, when Zhuo Fan took her hit on purpose to return the favor. Murong Shui gnashed her teeth in defiance. Since when do I need the devil to turn his cheek for me to purge evil from this world? This is utterly absurd. Hey, brother Yilin, is Western lands godlike? Ouyang Chongqing was having a difficult time coming to terms with reality as well, slapping Yilin's shoulder as he demanded answers. How the hell did you even train the best disciple in Western lands? You clashed with Bailey Jinggang yourself and he hadn't budged at all. Why then is he now dead in a second? Hey, say something! Weren't you bragging? Did you really fought this freak for the Western land's best disciple title and barely lost? Yilin's eyes twitched hard, his ears ringing with the pompous fool's demands. But as he looked at Zhuo Fan, he sighed hard, shaking his head. Qilin has the greatest strength among sacred beasts. Elder brother has now learned to use the Qilin arm as his own. Now even I won't be able to take that arm. Just how could I have fallen so far behind in just a few years? Yilin shook his head. Ruefully Ouyang Chongqing felt the same, though his mind ran wild with swears. Brother Yi, you're as bright as the sun, yet you could never match his splendor. Woe is you! There is no marring the shine of the moon. Thank God there's no monsters like that in northern lands, or my heart would break from jealousy. Though with the danger we're in, the stronger this brother Zhua is, the better. At least we'll get to survive this, he. Ouyang Chongqing's eyes flashed with hope, looking at Zhuo Fan in expectation. Brother Zhua, my poor humble life and future happiness rest in your hands. Save me and Sister Shui, and I shall never forget this boundless favor you have graced me with. Chapter 1067 Devour. Chapter 1067 Devour. Proofreader Papatonks. Qingqing, I'm here now. Ignoring all the confusion, hope and fear coming his way, Zhuo Fan only felt pain for the delicate woman next to him as she shivered. He held her shoulder lightly, drawing her into a hug and consoling her softly. Qingqing leaned on him and slowly calmed down. To the other's amazement, at peace Zhuo Fan was her rock. Even as her mind was dulled, her heart knew no fear, no worry. By Zhuo Fan's side Bailey Jingtian's face twitched, and raged at Zhuo Fan's crass lack of respect to him. Zhuo Fan's attitude was insufferable, a blatant insult to his station with the crown prince's extensive education. He could endure some pompous fool's cocky attitude and disregard it. That much he could do, but Zhuo Fan gave him no regard at all, writing them off as being dead already. It was absurd and outrageous. Zhuo Fan's casual taunt of not remembering his name was insufferable enough, but now he was enraged by that guy's complete disinterest. Sure, a taunt ruffled feathers, but at least the guy was looking at you. While now, why would he even taunt when he didn't even spare you a glance? But through Zhuo Fan's caring and thoughtful attitude, Bailey Jingtian came to realize he was only looking at his lover. He didn't just taunt me, but never took me for anything of worth either. He was the best crown prince in the lands. Bailey Jingtian, how dare you not even face me? The crown prince was not just a prince, but the pride of the Sword Star Empire, and also had the same fault. Unable to stand rejection, he also knew better than letting anger cloud his judgment, especially with Xuefan's vanishing act and instant disposal of Bailey Jinggang at the same time. He first needed to understand the intricacies of it all before he took any rash actions. Xuefan's power made him feel threatened, so caution was a must. Killing the strongest prince under him in a jiffy ought to warrant at least that much, no? Frigid Rain Sword King reported to Patriarch that the punk has Soul Harmony stage level strength. What a deadly lie! Then again, it was deadly for his second brother, though not without merit, having found meaning in his death by exposing the enemy's eerie skill. If it were me having to face that, the loss would be tragic. Bailey Jingtian whined in his head, giving the other princes a look. They nodded, turned to Xuefan and charged him all at the same time from all directions. Their hands flashed with thunder sword waves, aiming for Xuefan and the girl. Xuefan could not dodge them, not in this situation. But blocking wouldn't prove to be any easier, as there were just too many of them and some would be able to strike true as he defended against another. The best case in this scenario was escape, fleeing, but not just running away, blinking out of sight like he did before, and with Bailey Jingtian watching him like a hawk. The instant he figured out the ins of the skill, Xuefan would be done for either way. It was Bailey Jingtian's win for sure. Smirking at his cunning plan, Bailey Jingtian lifted his finger, flashing with a sword wave, wanting to capitalize on Xuefan's weakness as he made his move to end him then and there. Xuefan, though, had better things to do than mind Bailey Jingtian's petty tricks and the onslaught of prints coming his way, like being thoughtful to Chu Qingqing, still the same blatant disregard. Ouyang Chongqing, however, was only sweating harder the closer the enemy got. Xuefan was his lifeline, his savior. Elder brother, brother Xue, Master Xue! The Bailey fiends are coming for you, dodge! Xuefan held Chu Qingqing's delicate waist, humming a song as if to a child. Whoosh. The 8 experts were within 5 meters of him in seconds. Master Zhou, don't do anything reckless. This isn't the time for romance. You should leave dates for after you're safe. Please? Ouyang Chongqing cried out, and panicked Xuefan still held Chu Qingqing close, showing a fond smile as he hummed into her ears. The others weren't that worried though, sighing. Brother Xue, a man with a block of ice for heart is now thawed whenever around junior sister Qingqing. I just can't believe he'd go as far as to hum for junior sister Qingqing just to settle her startled heart. Screw believing! This is no time for flirting. Ouyang Chongqing cursed, his face falling as tears welled up. I know why you complain about his sloppy attitude. In times like these, he just looks after his wife. Shouldn't he at least do that after he settles the problem? Doesn't he realize that if he dies, there'd be no hope for us all? Especially myself. I want to romance my wife too. I just need a chance. Could he please not rob this from me? Ouyang Chongqing whined to Murong Xue. Murong Xue blushed and looked away. I'd much rather die here and now. Ouyang Chongqing sighed. Sister Xue, you wouldn't agree with me even in death? Just why? Whoosh. The princes were just a short meter from Xuefan, yet he still didn't care. Holding on to Chu Qingqing, Bailey Jingtian found it odd. Why isn't he moving? Does he really want them to attack him? Doesn't he care for his dumb wife? Anyone would be handicapped when protecting something. Does he really believe that he can take on the 8 of them even with such a handicap? Not even I can do it, so how can he? Bailey Jingtian's eyes shook in disbelief, but he still watched on, not wanting to miss anything. As for the wounded, they were also watching, in worry. Xuefan's death meant theirs. Xuefan's survival meant they'd see another day. Whoosh. One figure flashed in front as he extended his finger to shoot a sword wave for Xuefan. It's the 3rd prince! Murong Xue shouted. He's below Crown Prince and 2nd Prince but still very strong. He's the one that blocked me before. Ouyang Chongqing joined. Brother Xue can't fight back now, not with. Whoosh. 7 more sword waves launched for Xuefan, an attack that would definitely cripple Xuefan once they landed. Everyone tensed, clenching their sweaty palms. It was now or never. Any later and Xuefan would become bloody pieces on the ground. Sensing the danger at long last, Xuefan paused and his features hardened. Too little, too late. 3rd Prince smirked, needing only an inch for his attack to reach Xuefan's waist, and run him through. Third Prince grinned in supreme confidence at the imminent victory. His head is mine. Patriarch will reward me handsomely, ha ha ha. Whoosh. A cold wind blew just then, baffling the third prince to no end. Where did that bloodthirst come from? He found Juafan's icy eyes staring at him like a dead man, a gaze that made him shiver. The third prince was so close to victory, yet felt like prey instead. Juafan's piercing stare felt so oppressive, like death's scythe on his soft neck. Juafan only stared at him, ignoring the other 7 attackers. Scum, how dare you come close to Qingqing? Die! The boom that followed made the air warp in 1,000 meters around Juafan as a black thunder flame inferno exploded in all directions, enveloping the 8 and swallowing them whole. Divine Eye of the Void's 4th stage, Thunder Flame Space Crusher! His right eye flashed with 4 golden halos while the left held a berserk black thunder flame. Juafan was in the center of the roaring flames yet held Chu Qingqing with utmost care. As he hummed, he might be soft around Chu Qingqing, but cruel to any other, a true devil. Any that approached would be devoured.